Roll.
Council Caviello.
Present.
Council Falco.
Present.
Council Knight.
Present.
Vice President Longo Kern.
Present.
Council Marks.
Present.
Council Scarpelli. President Del Russo.
Present. 7 members present, none absent. Please join me in rising to salute the flag. Aye. Public hearing. We're gonna get rid of the text, the motorcycles. A public hearing, 16-747, notice for a public hearing. A public hearing will be held in the Medford City Council in the Howard F. Alden Memorial Auditorium, Medford City Hall, 85 George P. Hassett Drive, Medford, on Tuesday evening, November 29th, 2016 at 7 p.m. on a petition for a special permit petition pursuant to Chapter 94 zoning ordinances of the City of Medford, Section 94-148, use number 37, to operate a Class 1 automotive sales at 83 Mystic Avenue, Medford, Mass. Said site being located in a Commercial 2 zoning district. Petition and plans have been seen in the office of the City Clerk, Medford, Mass. Call 393-2401 for any accommodations. The City of Medford is an EOAA 504 employer. By order of the City Council, Edward P. Finn, City Clerk. We declare this portion of the public hearing opened. All those in favor, present yourself to the podium and declare so. Anybody in favor?
Good evening. Keith Pemberton, 18 Cheever Road, Malden, Mass. 02155.
And you are in favor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor? All those in favor? Hearing and seeing none, I declare that portion of the meeting closed. Anybody in opposition? Anybody in opposition to this portion, petition, please present yourself to the podium. Anybody in opposition? Hearing and seeing none, declare that portion of the meeting closed and ask the chairman of the zoning committee, Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, this is, I believe, the final application in a series of many that have come before this council for the relocation of Dom's Motor Service. I've reviewed the paperwork. The matter has been duly advertised, and I would move for approval. Everything seems to be in order.
Very good. On the motion for approval, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. On the motion to Council Knight for suspension of the rules to take the licensing piece up. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 16-775, petition for Class 1 auto sales license by Dom's Motor Service, 83 Mystic Avenue, Medford, Mass. On file, business certificate number 210, Building Department, Fire Department, Police Traffic Impact, Treasurer, Letter of Compliance, Tax Identification, Workman's Compensation Petition. Chair recognizes Council Caviello. Chairman of Licensing Committee. Is the petitioner present? Please come on up. We've seen you every week all month. Councilor?
Mr. President, I have reviewed the paperwork, and I say this is the final reading, if I am to say, and the paperwork is in order, and I recommend approval, Mr. President.
On the motion for approval by Councilor Caviello, seconded by Councilor Marks. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for staying in.
Congratulations, Keith.
Thank you very
Good
much.
seeing you.
While we're on suspension, Chair recognizes Councilor Scarpelli. For what reason do you seek suspension of the rules, Councilor?
If we can, Mr. President, we have a community member, one of our police officers would like to speak.
On the motion for suspension of the rules to allow community members to speak, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Granted. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Barbara D. Cristofaro, 100 Main Street, Medford, Mass. And I just have a brief statement to make. We were standing outside earlier this evening. I just want to say that I have lived in the city of Medford my whole life and currently serve the citizens of Medford as a 29-year veteran of the Medford Police Department. I want to thank you all for listening to us today as we try to bring awareness to a situation that should be important to all members of our community, but has been ignored by the administration of the city of Medford for far too long. We are here today to speak out as best we can against the long-standing and continuing failure of this city to maintain the Medford Police Department. The conditions of the building are deplorable. However, even more deplorable is the lack of minimum, let alone equal facilities for the female police officers of this city. I am referring specifically to the lack of female locker room, bathroom, shower, and physical fitness facilities. I am here because I feel that I have been forced to pursue intervention from an outside authority to rectify what I believe are the discriminatory practices of the Medford Police Department and the City of Medford against the female police officers. I was sworn in as a police officer in 1988 and was told my first day on the job that there were no facilities, locker room, bathroom, nothing for female officers, although there were 3 females sworn in prior to me. I was young, inexperienced, and didn't think of the long-term impact this lack of female facilities would have on my, as well as the other female officers' ability to perform our duties and work within the department. A few years later, after speaking with other female officers, I voiced our concern and made a request for equal facilities for myself and the other female officers. This was followed by silence from the police department. In the years that followed, I made more requests, filed a grievance, negotiated in good faith with city administrators and managers, all to no avail, which culminated in my filing of a discrimination suit against the police department and the city of Medford. I am not happy that I was left with no alternative but to file this complaint, but we collectively have been ignored, stonewalled, patronized, and lied to, even as I attempted on behalf of all female officers to advocate that the city provide what are the most basic accommodations police employees should expect. I will not go into specifics at this time due to the ongoing complaint, although some details are contained in the complaint itself. But be assured that there has been ample time, opportunity, and finances available to the city throughout the years that have been spent on a number of other projects, which shows a blatant disregard for the police in general and female officers specifically. Any attempts to the contrary, any statements to the contrary are false, and the attempts now to build a female locker room out of used and discarded remnants from other city departments only adds insult to injury. I respect my profession. I strive to be a good officer, and I pride myself on being a reliable partner to my fellow officers. It is unfortunate, and I believe discriminatory, and flies in the face of both the U.S. and Massachusetts constitutions for the administrations of the Medford Police Department and the City of Medford to continue to act as if they have no responsibility in creating a fair and equal workplace for all female officers of the Medford Police Department. I thank you for hearing my statement.
Good evening, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jean Martin, 10 Cumming Street. And I want to thank that officer for stepping forward, because I know that's not an easy thing to do. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the officers for being out there tonight. They held a sign that said, repair it, fix it. I say replace it. It's time that the whole police building needs to be taken down and rebuilt for a 21st century police department. It's absolutely deplorable. The conditions have been talked about. Rat feces, a whole line of windows that don't work. We've all been through it. It's a laundry list of issues. And there is no excuse for not having a new police department building put together. And if it's just, there's no excuse. And I think that if you want to, you could buy the Shaw's lot and put it there if you want. I'd be happy to have them in my neighborhood. So if you want to put them at the Shaw's lot, buy the property off of Shaw's. You get a whole new lease on life. You build a new station right there. So I support them, and I thank them very much for being out here tonight. Thank you.
Jerica's Vice President Logan Kern.
Thank you, President Del Russo. I just didn't know if anybody else had anything to say about I understand the female locker room situation, and I understand that's under litigation, and it's something that this council has heard was happening for many years now. and I know it's in the hands of the administration with regards to negotiations and to make the final decision. But having recently taken a tour of the Medford Police Department, I think now probably is a better time than ever to maybe hear from some of our officers of the actual conditions that are taking place in your facility. I think people need to speak out, and they need to speak out loud and clear, because when we got our capital improvement plan that potentially is going to move forward, we're talking not starting anything until end of 2018, I believe. And I just think that's not good enough. And I think when I drove by, I saw a sign that said enough is enough, and people need to speak out. The last year or so, finally residents of the community, not just the police, are calling us and telling us we need to do better. When I took the tour, number one, no female locker rooms, but when you go through the front door, there was officers who said they felt unsafe. There's not even any protection with regards to bulletproof glass. You can walk in and you see your 6 or 7 officers with the windows being held open with, I think it was bug spray or something. My tour was about an hour, and it's just disgraceful. I had to actually use the ladies' room, and I ran out of the police station. I wouldn't, in my right mind, go to the bathroom in your station. I'm sorry, but that's some place that we don't want to allow our men and women who are, fighting for our safety to work and, breathe every day. We went and saw, there was some remedy. I know the council took a tour years ago at the same time that the DPW yard, and that facility, obviously, the roof collapsed, so that came first. But we need to let our administration know the conditions that you're living in are not acceptable. So I'd love to hear from, fellow men and women who are in that station, and my rest of my colleagues, to ask that we move this forward sooner than a year or two from now with regards to the beginning of the process. I think that needs to start now.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Chair recognizes Councilor Scarpelli.
Again, thank you, Mr. President. I, too, want to thank Officer Christopher for coming up and speaking today. I, too, took a tour of the police station just recently, and until you do actually walk that walk, you realize what deplorable conditions our officers are in. Again, as I talked to some of the officers outside this evening in the rain, we talked about some very important pieces, that this isn't something that just happened overnight in the last 8 months of a new administration. This is something going on for a long time, but it's something that needs to be rectified as soon as possible. So I know I've talked to the administration, and I know that they have some immediate plans to work with the police department and making sure that the safety issues are addressed, and custodial issues, and what they can address right off the bat. And I concur with my fellow colleague that we need to start a dialogue sooner rather than later, and sitting with the city administration and try to find a resolution to moving the police station and the fire station safety building in front of most other agendas. And if you walk the streets of Medford, and if you talk to people, and if you read your emails, everybody's behind us. Everybody's behind you. And I think it's heard, and it's out there. And again, I just appreciate you guys, men and women, to come out and hold that sign, and just make it aware that we need to move forward, and move forward quickly as we can. Not only the plant, but I think that one thing that we talked about is, I'm hoping the mayor addresses this summer, our police cars. From what I hear, we're in the desperate area right now for safe police cars, and even if we have enough police cars for our staff. So there's a lot that needs to be worked on, but I think we need to, if we call, Mr. President, have a meeting with the city administration, and for a committee of the whole meeting, and really focus on this one piece, and try to come to a resolution. Do I think realistically that we're going to have a police station in a year or two? No, I don't think so. I'm not going to lie to anybody here, but I think that dialogue has to start, and our men and women that work and making sure our streets are safe know that their elected officials in the city administration is supporting them, especially from what I saw the last few weeks in that station. I think it's it's sad. It's sad, and we shouldn't live like that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilor Caraviallo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I've been on this council 5 years, and from the day I was elected, this has been an ongoing problem for the city of Medford. I've brought up many things of windows falling out, hitting officers on the head, doors falling off, and I brought them forward, and some of them have been rectified, some haven't. And as far as the women and their not having a facility to change in, I think it was an insult to give them that old trailer from the DPW. I mean, it was just that's certainly not acceptable for not the woman, but not really for anybody. I've seen facilities, temporary facilities that you can put up for the women of the police department. They have nicer trailers with heat and carpeting and for real legitimate temporary quarters for them to do, rather than just that old trailer that's been sitting down at the city yard for many years. And I would support the mayor at least looking into a real first-class temporary facility for the women of our police department to change in.
Thank you, Councilor. Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much, and thank you to Mr. Christopher and the rest of the officers that took the time to come here this evening. I truly appreciate your work and what you do for our community, Mr. President. Ultimately, right now across the country, there's an attack on police officers and the work that they do, and I think that we have an obligation to provide our men and women in blue with the tools necessary to do the job, Mr. President. And I don't think that there's a more vital tool than a home base, than a place to call home, a place to call headquarters, and a place to be dispatched out of, a place that you feel safe, a place that you feel comfortable in, and a place that you can be the most productive. And currently, the police station that we have in the city of Medford is not that. I think this council and the previous council has been very, very vocal about wanting to make the police station a priority. But the fact of the matter is that it's still 2 years away at the very least, based upon the capital plan that's out there right now, Mr. President. And I think Councilor Scott Pelley makes a great suggestion, and I support it wholeheartedly as amendment to have a committee of the whole with the mayor to discuss other ways that we can fund a police station. I think that this is a dialogue that needs to take place with our partners at the state delegation as well as our partners in the federal delegation, Mr. President, to give us an opportunity to get some funding. Maybe a public safety bond bill coming out of the legislature would be very helpful to this community to fund a police station. But we need to take a long, hard look at out-of-the-box ways in order for us to come up with funding that may not be based on tax revenue to ensure the completion of a new police station. That's something that I look forward to working towards, Mr. President, and I know that this council has been vocal supporters of building a new police station. However, when push comes to shove, the police station still isn't done, and we need to do a better job for these men and women in blue, Mr. President. So with that being said, I wholeheartedly support Councilor Scott Pelley's amendment to the resolution, and I'd move for approval.
On the motion for approval, thank you, Councilor Knight. Chair recognizes Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd also like to thank the men and women of the Medford Police Department for coming down here tonight. Although I'm new to the council, this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed immediately. It's gone on far too long, and we need to see if there's some way to come up with a solution to push this forward in a quicker fashion. I definitely agree with my colleagues. We need to have a meeting, but I think, we have to address all facets, cruisers, the building, but I think also in general, we have to address staffing. I mean, I think you take a look at our police department. One of the things that's come up repeatedly as we've had the community meetings, the police community meetings, is staffing. You're understaffed. You need more help, I think. And I think you do a great job. You do a fabulous job. I see you out in the streets daily, and I always hear good things about the police department working hard. And I think that, you're out there fighting for us and protecting us on a daily basis. And the least we can do is fight and work hard for you so that you have a new facility. That is a building that it's open 24 hours a day. The lights are always on. It's always being used, and it's long overdue that we need a new police station. We need it yesterday, and we need to find a way to make this happen sooner than later. I support the resolution that was brought forward. This definitely has my support. A new police station is key, and like Councilor Knight said, it's giving you the tools that you need to be successful in your job, and so I support it wholeheartedly. And thank you for coming down tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Falco. Chair recognizes Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Officer DeCristofaro. It takes a lot of courage to get up there and make the statement that was made. And as someone that's been on the council a number of years, I can recall the time that the State Department of Occupational Health went out, this is probably back some 10 years ago, and issued a 40-page report on items that needed to be addressed at the police station. And I'm not proud to state that not one item was ever addressed by the police department on those items, which is a shame. Also, you know, when we did the original walkthrough, when we did with the DPW, I think all members of the council felt not only the DPW yard in the facility, but also the police department needed to be condemned. And this was back some, I believe it was 8 years ago, six years ago maybe. At the time, we went down to a firing range that hasn't seen a bullet in 10 years. We went through the cells that were like Mayberry that didn't lock. You say, well, this cell doesn't work, that cell doesn't work, it's on an honor system. You close the gate and hopefully the prisoners stay in. You went into an evidence room that had leaking from the ceiling, compromising evidence. Over the past 5 years, this council has voted, I can't tell you, probably a dozen times on what we'd like to see in this community. And we were asked to prioritize them. And each and every time, the #1 priority was a new police station. So, you know, I'm not going to sit here and blame the administration 100%, because I quite honestly believe this council has acted as enablers, because we have the bottom line of the budget. And like I did this year, there was a number of items that I thought should have been included in the budget, and I took a vote not to support the budget until these items were done. And if this council stood up to the mayor and said, Madam Mayor, this budget coming up, if there's not appropriation in there for a new police station, we will not vote on the budget. That's the teeth and strength we have as a council, and we've failed as a council to stand up. It's great to give speeches after the fact and say we're going to do this and that, but the one time it counts is during the budget time, and in my opinion, that's the time that we need to stand up as a council and be spoken for. And I refuse, Mr. President, to hear from anyone that would say that that building is inhabitable for people. In my opinion, that building should be condemned. We went into the basement and saw active and exposed asbestos in that building. We saw wiring that was well over the amount of circuits that should be plugged in to a particular outlet. We saw a number of public safety concerns. We saw mold in the ceiling, active mold, and we're asking our men and women to use this as a place where they might have lunch, they might want to exercise. I've been down in the exercise facility. I don't know about you, I wouldn't want to exercise or take a shower in that building. God knows what is in that building. And these are the things that we can no longer talk about and say, well, it's the mayor, it's the mayor. We have to stand up as a council and say, you know what, Madam Mayor, you're not going to get any more budget money. You're not going to get any more action from this council on the papers that you're issuing until you address the #1 need of this council, which has been over the last 5 years, a new police station. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilor. Chair recognizes a citizen at the podium. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Robert Penta. I'm a former member of this august body. I reside at 0 Summit Road, Medford, Mass. Just one quick comment, Council Marks. I don't think it took an act of courage for the lady to come up here, Officer DeCristofaro. It took an act of final frustration. The frustration that's built up on a daily basis by police officers. Does anybody understand what a Medford or any police officer has to go through today on a daily basis? During this past week, you've heard of 9 police officers shot, murdered on the job. These guys and women go to work every single day not knowing what the end result is going to be. All they're asking for, both male and female officers, is having a place to call their home, which is their police station, so they don't have to be here. This is frustration. This is not embarrassment. This is complete dereliction of duty by the city administration going back some 5 years and bringing it forward. When we talk about what needs to be done on a daily basis, what has everybody on this council said, even on the school committee, what is your number one priority? That's the protection of the people within this community. And if you don't give them the tools over and beyond a building, whether it's the equipment by way of cars, whether it's by way of training, by way of giving them the proper guns and shooting and anything else that goes along with being a police officer on a daily basis, they can't do their job correctly. And you know what happens? The malaise takes over the situation to the point that if they don't care and the city doesn't care, maybe the job just doesn't get done as it should get done. Where's the act of pride of coming to work each and every day, knowing as a Medford police officer, not only that this council, finally a council, is holding the administration's feet to the fire, we are going to get that building. You just got a couple of months ago a report, a comprehensive report of a master plan. $2 million next year to do a study of a location, and $18 million to supposedly in 2018 build a building. But nowhere in that plan does they tell you where the money's coming from. And why do you have to spend $2 million? Tell me why you have to spend $2 million to figure out what kind of a plan and where it's going to go. But putting all of that together, have any single one of you, through the president of the council, been asked, what is your opinion? Has the council been asked, through the mayor in this master plan, councilors, what do you think? These are my thoughts. Do you like them? Don't you like them? Can we add or subtract to it? There is nothing. You people are out in left field. She doesn't share one thing with you, not one thing with you. And the sad part about this whole thing is, not only are you talking about the police department, there are many other things that go on around here on a daily basis. You can't have an interjection. You talked about Office of Occupational. It was back in 2009, Council Marks. And I think at that point in time, the building commissioner went down there and he wanted to condemn the building, okay? And the city said no, not to condemn it. So from 2009 till now, the problem has been that the police station has, over and beyond its everyday problems, they've been exasperated to the point that you have people coming up here. You have people standing outside in the rain trying to tell a story. You have a contract yet to be resolved because this administration could have resolved it right in the beginning in January, but no, for a few measly thousands of dollars, it's now going to cost the city, the taxpayers, and the police department many thousands of dollars. Sometimes you have to spend some money to make some money. And stupidity can ruin everything. And stubbornness can ruin everything. And because this Medford Police Department union did not come out and support this mayor on her election, they're paying a price for it. And that's wrong. They don't deserve it. They deserve their station. They deserve to be clean, healthy, educated, moral characters within this community so people can look up to them and say, we have a professional Medford Police Department. We're proud of them. They talk right. They treat us right. They are right. That's what this city is supposed to be all about. You want to talk about inclusion? Be part of it. Don't create a disillusion. The problem around here is everybody's got their own agenda, and nobody's talking to each other. You talk about the police station. The most vital part of a police station is your evidence room. How can you have your evidence room in a garage where the garage doors go up and down and evidence gets missing? How do you win and lose your cases like that if you don't have your evidence? Over and beyond the mold, the infestation, the jail cells, the women's locker rooms. It's a whole multiplicity of things that are going on over there. My suggestion to you would be, if I was sitting back on that side of the rail, I would demand, I wouldn't make a request, I would demand of the mayor of Medford to immediately sit down with you, negotiate the contract, don't give that stupid, ridiculous thing that they want to give over there for the women to go into some kind of chaos by giving them an old, used, whatever you want to call it, that can't even put their gun in a complete locker because it's a kid's locker frame. Come on, guys. You got to get out there. You can't talk about this thing anymore. You just do it. And the only way you do it is by holding the person who has the purse strings, who makes the final decision, hold that person's foot to the fire. And get your act together and get involved with it. And if you all get involved with it, the job will get done. You can call for all the meetings you want, Mr. President. It's not going to happen. These guys and women should not have to go out there in the pouring rain to try to sell a story, to say, not to keep their jobs, just give us what we need on a daily basis to make our jobs better. You want to have public safety, you want to have protection, give it to them. Thank you.
Good evening, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Phyllis Morrison. I live at 32 Andrews Street. And I could not stand over at that post without making some comments, and my fellow citizen just made a lot of them. My first and foremost question is, I'm not here to play a blame game. I mean, my statement, I'm not here to play a blame game. I hear that for 5 years this item is being brought forward. As a former principal of high schools, my big question is, how is the building open? How is it that the building hasn't been condemned? Why wasn't the building condemned? We have people going to work every day that don't have clean facilities, that are operating with mold, asbestos, and I think I heard rodent droppings. I cannot even wrap my head around this. I don't care if it was 5 years or 10 years. I've lived in Medford for 20 years, and in 20 years, the majority of the time I've lived alone, and I have never for one night in this city felt unsafe. And that is directly because of the men and women in blue that are here. What is wrong with any human being that they would expect that people go into those conditions on a daily basis? Would you do that? I know I wouldn't. How many of them are out on sick leave because of the elements they're exposed to there? I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but would you go to work like that? We would not expect to go to work like that. I have a sincere question. I don't care who the mayor is. Why hasn't the building been condemned? It would not pass any building codes. I await a response. But if I'm really hearing that this has been going on for 5 years, you aren't asking the right people. I mean, this is not rocket science to me, and I'm sorry if I sound impassioned, but I think about myself and I say, why would I expect myself to go into those conditions? These are the men and women that every day put their lives in danger. And they don't have a place to eat their lunch. They have a bug can holding a window open. You wouldn't use their ladies' room. Nobody else would do this. What can the citizens do to help? What can we as citizens do to help these brave men and women? I'm dead serious. What can we do? I'll call the mayor. I'll call the mayor. I'll call anyone who'll listen. And my question for you as a city council, and please, I'm a little excited because I'm a little passionate about this because I cannot believe what I'm hearing. I mean, no disrespect to anybody. Why hasn't the former mayor, the present mayor, well, I know Mayor McGlynn was the mayor forever, so and I say that. Well, he was. He was the mayor for a long time. But anyhow, why didn't they do it? Why didn't he do anything? I believe the new mayor, and I disrespectfully agree with my fellow citizen, it doesn't matter whether we stand with people or not. This is not about that. This is about people's lives and going to work. So I have to say that. I had to. But was there ever a penny allocated? You know, was there ever anything done? So you're sitting here telling all of us gathered here tonight that in 5 years, this is what I'm hearing, that in 5 years, this council and past or present administration has done nothing to take care of this building?
The council has appropriated funds, but they're Band-Aid approaches. It's a Band-Aid approach.
Right.
It's a Band-Aid approach. So
Absolutely.
we've appropriated funds to secure the evidence room.
Sure.
We've appropriated funds to repair the heat over at the Academy building, if I
Right.
remember offhand, for two items that pop
Sure.
into mind right away. But it's a Band-Aid approach. It's a Band-Aid approach.
Exactly.
We need a new building.
And I can even see you're frustrated.
The more that we invest money in them, we're just putting Councilor Mark's favorite line. We're investing good money after bad.
Throwing
Good money
good
after
money
bad.
after
Good money
bad.
after throwing good money after bad money. And
So-
and I understand your frustration. And quite frankly, I don't have the business to be as frustrated as the men and women in this audience right here because they're there every day.
But I think you're frustrated for them.
Yeah, I am.
You
I
are,
am.
and I think we could say in
Point of
agreement, we are
information.
frustrated for them. But here's the question. There's no time like the present. We can all call the mayor tomorrow, but you know what that might get us? All a phone call to the mayor. I want something in writing. I want something in writing from this council. I'm a citizen. I've never demanded or asked anything of this city.
Point of information, Councilor Scarpelli.
Appreciate your frustration, because I think that especially if you walk that walk and you see what's in there, it's frustrating. But I think this is the step that asking for the mayor's meeting, and meeting with the mayor, and showing up at that meeting.
Oh, I'll be
would
there.
Would be a good sign, and hopefully we can move it forward. So I think this is the beginning. I can understand the frustration moving back, but I think we need to move forward in finding a way to meet with the mayor to get this resolved.
Right. But
So-
let me say, not only am I frustrated,
Councilor
I am
Scarpelli, for your point of
horrified.
information.
I'm horrified that anyone is going to work in those conditions. And I'm going to go back to my real, it keeps running around in my head. Why hasn't the building been condemned?
Thank you.
I'm a former principal of a school. If my school building looked like that, it would have been condemned. No one would have been allowed in it. You're the council. Why hasn't it been condemned?
Point of information, Madam Vice President Lungo-Kern.
Thank you.
2010-11, we asked the Board of Health to condemn the building, and the Board of Health for the city of Medford would not condemn the building.
So the Board of
Thank you
Health.
for your point of information, Madam Vice President. Ma'am, you can continue.
I'm sorry, I'm
Thank you.
sorry. The Board of Health saw all these violations and didn't condemn the building. I say get the Board of Health out of there.
Thank you.
What Board of Health would allow people to go to working conditions like that? I'm serious, people. To the police officers in the back and wherever you are, I am sorry that I was ignorant of your place before. I apologize. But I will be at a meeting. So when's the meeting with the mayor, please? Okay, how will we find out about that, I think you're the vice president. How will we find out about that meeting?
48-hour notice through the city clerk's office.
So will we be notified by email? Will Captain Barry Clementi, who I love, I mean that, I love his notifications, will he give a notification of that meeting? I'm dead serious, I love those. Yeah, I want to be at the meeting. I don't want to take up more of your time, but I want you to know that this cannot, it can't go on. What is the ratio of sick time? How many times are these people out sick because of the deplorable conditions they're working in? Morale's got to be at an all-time low. And yet every time I run into a Medford police officer, I am treated with courtesy and a smile. And sometimes I can be a little bit of an agitator when I want my way. It's true. And I've always had that. So I thank you for your time. I want to know about the meeting, and I want to be there. And if I don't, I'll be back here to ask you why you didn't let me know. Thank you for your time.
Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, I'd like to amend the paper to request that a representative from the Patrolmen's Association is also invited to the meeting with the administration once scheduled.
As amended on the motion of Councilor Scarpelli, as amended by Councilor Knight and Councilor Knight, that a member of the Patrolmen's Association be requested to attend. Thank you, Councilor. Chair recognizes a citizen at the podium. Welcome, good evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Andrew Castanetti, Cushion Street, Medford, Massachusetts. If you need a police station, they shouldn't be in such disrepair that it is that sickening. If you need it, and it should be done. They should have a decent place to do their business because they are protecting us. But my concern is, how did we get to this point? The building, I believe, was built in 1960, and I christened it back then, and it's 56 years old, younger than I. It's made of brick. It's not made of wood. It seems like there's a problem with maintenance. I'm worried that we're going to jump from a frying pan into a fire. We have a lot of new schools. I'm not sure if they're being maintained at a $100 million price tag. The Chevalier Auditorium, I believe, was built in 1939. I believe our old high school on Forest Street was built, I think, 1839. And they're a lot taller. They're in great shape. Owned by private and public entities, separate buildings. Probably over 10,000 homes of wood stock, made of wood frame in this city exist, over 100 years old. Seems to me there's a maintenance problem. And I don't want to see my child, if he can still afford to live in this city, get hit with $40 million studies to see if we need another fire station in 30 years from today. Maintenance is key. With a $160 million budget, should not a certain percentage, whatever it takes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10%, if necessary, to maintain our structures before we get into like huge mega million bonds, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. And the interest rate might not be so favorable down the road. Thank you if you're listening.
Thank you, Mr. Casagnetti. Good evening. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Sam Sednick. I'm at 47 West Wyoming Avenue. Just as they were talking, I wasn't here for this issue, but I was doing a little bit of researching, and I know that there's always a money issue in terms of where money is coming from, but I know we also write community development block grants. And it seems that there's a lot of money there that's federal money that is geared towards emergency rehabilitation of buildings, city buildings, and I don't know where we are in our current process on the grants, but just to throw that set of grants out there for the folks that work in development, if that could be looked into, perhaps you could get a little boost in terms of funding that way.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Harold McGilvery, 100 Main Street. I'm the president of the Medford Police Patrolmen's Association. So I just want to say thank you to the public because they have overwhelmingly supported us on this. The public support is unbelievable in a time where, you know, police across the country are under fire. The people in Medford are rallying around their police department, and it's really a great feeling for the officers. I'm proud of my membership tonight for standing out in the rain. The issue is important to them. We appreciate the council's support. We appreciate the mayor taking it seriously and moving forward. We just need to see something get done. So we have to stop talking about it, stop bickering about it. Let's get it done, and we'll move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you, Harold. Thank you, Barbara. On the motion. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Tony Nardello. I live at 33 Frederick Avenue. I've been a resident of Medford for about 20 years, and I just recently purchased a property here. And I think the reason we have so many problems in this city is that the council capitulated to the mayor 35 years ago. So we have a fiefdom here. We tried to have some kind of resolution recently to make it so that the mayor and the city council were kind of like on equal terms. And and it was shot down. And then we need, I think, 5,000 votes in order to get that changed. And we can't get that. You guys are fighting with one hand behind your back. Anybody that's been on this council for more than 3 or 4 years should be embarrassed. You guys have been capitulated. You have no power. If I'm not mistaken, didn't you get the budget like 7 hours before it was due? You guys were reviewing it that time? You don't care? Is that not true? Okay, I thought I saw that in the transcript, that you guys were filing through it and it was dropped in your laps and you had like 5 or 6 hours to review it? No? Well, I think what's happening here is that the mayor has its own power, and the power of this council doesn't exist. You can wave and you can say we have a vote here, but you don't because of that law. We can't get 5,100 votes. I'll work with any council to get these votes. You got to have some power. You have no power. And that's why we had such a problem, and for 25 years with the same mayor, couldn't do anything with them. And you get in and they give certain treats to these people and that people, and they get in and they stay there. And the people here in Medford have no representation, because you're supposed to be our representation. It's 60-30, 60-40. You guys have 40% of the power. She's got 60. No matter what you want to do, you can't do anything. So why can't we get that back? We tried earlier this year. It couldn't happen. So do we need 5,100 votes to get it through, I'll work with any councilor to get that done. But we gotta have a regular system like mayors and city councils like we have across the country. We don't need a fiefdom here, and that's the problem. So anything we want to do with the police department, school department, when I work with them, it's absolutely terrible. You know why? Because it's complacency. Nobody has shaken anything up in the last 25 years. Because they're the king. And you guys are running around like you got things going on. But you really have no power. And as a citizen of this city, I'm pretty, it's pretty embarrassed, actually. And then, and not even to boot, we're going to have major airplanes, traffic over our head. Where were you guys on that? Where? Forget about, the police station's important, there's no question. But how about, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, we're going to have planes over our head? Where was that? Guys, you guys should be embarrassed that you didn't fight for the city, the residents of this city earlier. Anybody that's been on here for more than 4 or 5 years, I don't know what you've been thinking. Come on, stand up for us. We got a king or a queen up there, and everybody's over here saying we're going to do something, and you have no power to do anything, and nobody wants to take it back. Very disappointing. Very disappointing.
On the motion of Councilor Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Knight, as amended by Councilor Knight twice. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. While we're under suspension, Madam Vice President, what would you like to address?
Residents here wanting to address 16777.
On the motion to take 16777 while we're under suspension, all those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. 16-777, November 23rd, 2016. To the Honorable President and members of the Medford City Council, City Hall, Medford, Mass. 02155. Dear Mr. President and City Councilors, whereas the strength of our nation is derived from its history of diversity that has enriched our communities with a variety of cultures, faith traditions, and viewpoints, and whereas the City of Medford is a community that welcomes and values the varied racial and ethnic makeup of our residents, and whereas the City of Medford stands in support of all immigrant groups and newcomers as they pursue the American dream, and whereas the City of Medford will work to model our city as a safe and welcoming place that equally encourages all to seek personal advancement and to reside in peaceful contentment in Medford. And whereas the City of Medford rejects all words and acts of hate, indifference, and intolerance that undermine our neighborhoods, communities of faith, and our schools, and thwart the promise of equal justice. And whereas our nation was founded on the fundamental principle that all persons are entitled to equal protection of law, equal opportunity, and to the enjoyment of civil and human rights. Now, therefore, the City of Medford proudly supports the Medford Conversations Project to promote dialogue and collaboration about race and ethnicity in Medford and beyond. Sincerely, signature on file, Stephanie M. Burke, Mayor. And here to represent this from the Mayor's office is Diane McLeod, our Director of Cultural and Racial Diversity in the City of Medford. Diane, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all. The Office of Human Diversity wholeheartedly supports the Mayor's resolution before you tonight. There are members of the Human Rights Commission here tonight, along with members of the Medford Community Coalition, Medford Conversations, as well as other residents of the city. During this particular time in our country, we've heard hateful words and seen hateful actions that hurt people. They frighten people. People that have lived here for many years now fear for their well-being and that of their families because they appear to be different. In Massachusetts alone, the phone line set up by the AG's office to report potential hate crimes received 300 calls in 4 days. I've received calls in my office from our residents who are afraid because of the color of their skin, or they appear to be different. I want to assure them all that all of our residents are valued and respected. People should feel free to contact the diversity office if they have questions or concerns, and the diversity office and the mayor's office are here to support you. This is also an issue that touches many people in a personal way. For example, my niece, whose both of her parents are deceased, she was planning to come here. She had a ticket to fly here for Thanksgiving. She recently adopted an African-American child, and she canceled her trip because she was afraid people have been throwing rocks at people, saying hateful things, and she's like, I can't come. I can't subject my child to that. This resolution is about respect and dignity for all people, and I hope you support it as well. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. McLeod, for your presentation. In the reading of the language of this resolution that's been presented by the mayor, I really look at it as confirmation that we're going to continue to do business the way we've always tried to do it, Mr. President. When we look at the City Council and the votes that we've taken in the past, we've taken votes to establish a Human Rights Commission. We've taken votes to establish a fair housing ordinance that's far more reaching than the matter that's before us this evening. So when I look at this resolution and I read it, I say that now, therefore, the City of Medford proudly supports the Medford Conversation Project. And I think that what's really important is that Ms. McLeod get up and explain a little bit about what the Medford Conversations Project is, Mr. President, because that seems to be the real subject and topic of this resolution. But ultimately, in my reading of this resolution, and it's something that I support wholeheartedly, what it says is that Medford's going to continue to be a diverse community that's inclusive of the residents that live here, and that are going to do the best that we can to be sure that everybody's treated fairly and equally. And I certainly have no problem with that, Mr. President, because I was always taught that you treat people the way you want to be treated. And I certainly want to be treated fairly and equally as everybody else, and I think that everybody in this community deserves that right, Mr. President. But I would ask if Ms. McLeod would just come up and explain a little bit about the Medford Conversations Project so that we can be educated a little further on that.
Thank you. Before she does so, we're going to give the floor to Councilor Caviello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Knight hit right on the mark there. I don't think we all grew up with a value system. I don't think we need a piece of paper to say that we support everyone in this community, no matter with the race, ethnicity, or anything. I mean, that's how I was brought up. My parents brought me up this way, and I think I can speak for everybody in this council. I think we all have a value system, and I don't think there's, I don't think anyone should hate anyone. I don't know anyone that hates anybody in this community. I think we're a very diverse community, and again, this paper doesn't really do anything other than reaffirm the values that we already have.
Can I speak?
Thank you, Councilor Caviello. Vice President Lungo-Kern.
Oh, I was just going to agree with my colleagues, but also ask Ms. McLeod, has the mayor officially sent out a statement to the press, or a lot of times every week we get a statement by email from her associates?
I know it was obviously in the council papers. I don't know if it has gone to the press. But I would like to say, the city does have a Human Rights Commission. The city does a lot of work with the community, but there's also a lot of community members that don't take part in day-to-day, they're not here at City Hall, but they're living in the community, they're working hard, and they deserve everyone's respect, we all do. It's all about, as I said, respect and dignity. And I know you're saying it's not important that, it's on a piece of paper, but I think it is important to many in the community to hear that. You may not have faced what a lot of people have faced in the community. I've had people, as I said, residents call me, say, I've lived in this community for 30 years. My kids go to school here. Do I have to be afraid? And I mean, that's a horrible thing for anyone to deal with. It's just to think, because I look different. We obviously all look the same looking around the circle here. But to walk in those shoes and to feel the fear, I hear it when I speak to people. They're afraid in the community. And you may not get the comments people get, but, you know, I do hear it, and I want them to know that as a Medford resident, no matter who you are, we're all here for you. The council is here for you, the administration's here for you, police department's here for you, the fire department's here for you. It's all about being respected, and that's all I'm asking for through this resolution. I think it's important to say it.
Tell us about the Conversations Project.
I'm going to ask actually one of the lead people, who is Reverend Noah Evans. It's been a huge collaboration of a lot of different agencies in the city and that have come together, and it's really about civic and civil dialogue, about respecting each other's opinions. And Noah, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Welcome,
Thank you.
your reverence. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm the Reverend Noah Evans, 260 Grove Street here in Medford. I also serve as the rector of Grace Episcopal Church on High Street. The Medford Conversations Project, our mission is to include and actively engage a multiplicity of voices in our community. Through conversations, the project hopes to encourage people to create and act on visions of a sustainable, just, and thriving Medford. The Conversations Project is a collaboration of about 25 community groups, and we're seeking to bring together people from across the city, different sides of the city, and then across other differences, race, ethnicity, age, generation, gender, sexual orientation, to engage in civic conversations. This winter, we're having a conversation series, which is kicking off on January 29th, Sunday, January 29th, at Medford High School. The winter conversation series is called Who Belongs? Dialogues about Race and Ethnicity in Medford and Beyond. This community has changed so much in the last 20 years. And it's important that we're engaged in conversations across our differences so that we know one another, we understand the differences in perspective, in viewpoint that is arising in this city, so that we can all be more civically involved and really live into the beauty that we've been given in this diverse community. I think one of the most exciting things about living in Medford is our diversity. It's something I hear from people again and again is one of the reasons they want to come and live and be a part of our community. And right now, at a time when our nation has so much division, we have an opportunity to be a beacon of hope and light in saying that we've figured out ways to cross our differences here in Medford and live together and be engaged as a community, civically involved. So the Medford Conversations Project is an effort to bring us together in facilitated conversations, small group conversations, so that we can understand one another, we can be better neighbors with one another and be more civically involved.
Thank you, Reverend Father. Chair recognizes Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. This resolution is one that I wholeheartedly support. As a former member of the school committee and as a current member of the city council, I've met thousands of residents with different cultures, religions, nationalities, sexual orientation, and experiences. Last year, I was so inspired by the diversity that my campaign, when I ran for city council, was One Medford. To me, our community is strong because we welcome and embrace diversity. And part of my commitment to our city is to make Medford as welcoming as possible to all residents. When we offer our own unique experiences and work together, we become One Medford. If you take a look at Medford High School, there are over 68 countries represented at Medford High School. At Medford High School, students participate in all kinds of culture clubs and learn and celebrate the Asian, Arabic, Indian cultures. The Gay Straight Alliance Club promotes unity, tolerance, and respect for LGBT students. Community organizations in Medford continue to work together to celebrate diversity, promote inclusivity, and create a community of acceptance. Examples include the West Medford Black History Celebration, in the recent Medford Gives Thanks Interfaith Service, and the various programs and options offered at the Medford Family Network. Our Human Rights Commission works hard to promote their mission, which is, and I quote, promote the civil rights of Medford residents, reinforce a positive community atmosphere, work with community groups and agencies to educate, promote understanding, to eliminate prejudices and intolerance, and to mediate within the community whenever needed. I support this resolution wholeheartedly tonight. I believe our commitment to working together to improve Medford for all residents signifies to me that we are indeed one Medford. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Falco. The chair recognizes Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I can ask Reverend Noah a quick question. Do we have a representative from the school department?
The high school has been very involved, and we have a high school teacher who's on our steering committee.
Okay.
So one of our hopes is that every small group conversation will have at least one high school student as part of it, maybe as one of the trained facilitators. So we've been in close partnership with the high school.
Thank you very much, because I work with this every day, and I work with a diverse community that sees the fair and what's happening in today's society. So I think it's very important that we reach out to especially the kids in our community and let them know that we're here to support them, and let them know that there is someone listening. There is someone that has a handout and support. And I think that this is a great way to start. I know that we've talked a few times about different types of summits with our community members and our stakeholders. And I think this might be a great time to look into that form of a summit, that we can bring the police department in, we can bring our clergy together, we can bring in our different youth groups together and just to share what we need to share, the word of hope and togetherness, and an understanding that the world needs a good word, a hug, a smile. And I think that's what's important. I know that that's what my father taught me every day. And I appreciate the mayor sending this our way, and I appreciate all your hard work and the committee's hard work. And I know firsthand the fear that's out there. And I think anything we could do to reach all of our citizens and let them know that we're all here together, I think it's very important. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Yes, Mr. President, if the good Reverend could approach the podium, you're better off not leaving. Sure. Reverend Evans, it's my understanding that the Medford Conversations Project is a collaboration of a number of groups in the community, but one of the things that my research has led me to find out is that you have facilitators that are actually trained facilitators, and it's my understanding that the Conversations Project has received a grant to train these facilitators, and each facilitator is going to be potentially provided with a certain number of hours of training so that they can really get down to the root of the issues that are going on here in the community, and really have a civil dialogue that's moderated in a direction that's going to make this a process of learning versus a process of opposition and fighting.
Yeah. So our facilitators are receiving 10 hours of training, and we're right now recruiting people who are interested in undergoing that training. And that's a key part to having these conversations over difference, is to have trained facilitators who can help a group bond, a group go deep into the conversation and really hear and listen to one another. So the trained facilitators are a key part of this. It's not just having a coffee clutch. It's having a really intentional conversation, and this winter series, an intentional conversation about race and diversity.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Knight. Chair recognizes Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I appreciate all the supporters of this particular resolution tonight. And, I come from the feeling that it's great to offer statements, and statements are helpful as a first step, but it's also important to have concrete action to back statements. And we can all say we're in favor of this, and we're in favor of inclusivity, and we're in favor of bringing everyone together, but actions speak louder than words. And I believe strongly, working with housing and working with poor families, homeless families, that a city's housing supply has a lot to do with whether or not a city is inclusive. And in my opinion, we lack the affordable housing in this community to really start talking about the issue of inclusivity. And start addressing the fundamentals. So it's great to say we welcome everyone for the American dream, unless you're making a six-digit income with two parents working. We welcome you, because you can't afford to live in this city. And that's a concern. We don't have affordable housing in this community. So I think we as a community, and it starts with the leadership, have to address the issues of income and inequality and other issues that are barriers. So it's great to put out a statement, and I think we all behind this railing and the public agree with, but are we talking about the economic side? I mean, really, what type of jobs are we offering to residents in this community? I mean, I'll throw the question out. What discussion have we had, other than Telecom City back some 10 years ago, that was going to bring in high-tech jobs into this community? We offer minimum wage jobs throughout this community. And, you know, as you know, there's a housing boom in the city of Medford, and I think that's where the discussion has to start. And I'd like to see more direction, you know, when we talk about hiring. I mean, you know, I don't want to cast stones, but take a look at the administration's inner circle and the hiring that this current administration did. And I think you'll be surprised to see the hiring. So it's great to talk about it on a piece of paper, but actions speak louder than words. And I know your group is trying to put together these actions, but I think we have to do much more when it comes to education in this community, addressing critical needs in early childhood education is a basic fundamental. Affordable housing is a basic fundamental in which we fall under the state guideline for affordable housing. So anyone that wants to come into this community because we don't meet the state criteria can come under the guise of Chapter 40B, which allows them to circumvent zoning and allow them to build to any height and any level they want, because we don't provide affordable housing. So I think we have to do more as a community rather than just a statement or a rah-rah speech, and have to see something concrete. And it would have been nice to have the mayor here present such an important issue, because this is an important issue. It would have been nice to have that representation here. And, you know, I support any type of statement. I'm born and bred in this city, and I've seen a lot of change in this community. And I remember when every neighborhood was distinct. And that feel is starting to change a little bit, and whether it's good or bad. But I for one, would like to see more of a plan of action, and I'd like to see more of something from the administration as a way of executive orders. If that's the concern of this city, that we want to be more inclusive and we want to make sure our policies are geared toward that, then the mayor should be directing that. The mayor should be directing her hiring policy to that effect. The mayor should be directing the fact when she puts out a city budget that there's transparency. And someone that may not have a computer can't look up the budget because they don't have access to a computer. These are just small items, but things that I think need to be addressed if we're really going to start the dialogue and discussion. I appreciate your efforts on this. I know you've been active in the community a lot of years, and I respect your work. But I'd like to see more than just a statement. I'd like to see some concrete executive orders. I'd like to see some concrete policies that address more affordable housing, better pre-education in this community, more affordable education in this community, and issues that will bring a community together. And that's my concern.
So I want to address what you're saying, though I'm a parish priest, I'm not a policy guy, not a politician. But the key to having the kind of change that you're discussing, the kind of important work for justice and housing, justice and equality of income, good jobs, it comes out of having a high level of civic involvement. Civic involvement comes through trust in a community. It comes from neighbors knowing neighbors. It comes from us all being able to know each other, work together, and to advocate for action. So the beginning of that is conversation. Conversation across difference. When we know our neighbors, we vote, we read the newspaper, we act together, and we change our community. So yes,
you need
what you're saying
you don't need
is
the
true,
city,
but
you don't need the city to let you talk to your neighbors. You don't need the city to organize. You don't need the city to step in and say, okay, now we're going to say that everyone should speak with each other and so forth.
That's not what I'm saying.
But that's what you're saying is a basis for what you're stating, and that's basic. And that should be done, you're right, maybe in a neighborhood level, a local level, a church level, whatever it might be, civic level, whatever it might be. I don't think that needs to come from the city, and I don't think, and if it does come from the city, the mayor's policy should back that, and not just be lip service. And I don't see that happening, to be quite frank with you. I don't see it happening with the policies, I don't see it happening with the city budget, and I don't see it happening throughout the city. So I don't think you're getting the direction from the administration that you're asking for. And I hope it happens, but to start discussions now, that's great, but what about the last 10 years? I mean, we can't go back, but what I'm saying is there's been no direction. There's been no leadership. So we can't go back and change, but there has to be direction and leadership, and that's what's been lacking.
I'm actually not really sure we're talking about the same thing, but that's okay.
Thank you, Councilor Marks. Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I think that conversations are important. Conversations regarding our differences will lead us to have a better understanding of what our similarities are in the community. So with that being said, I move for approval of the paper, Mr. President.
On the motion for approval by Councilor Knight, number of citizens wish to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. Welcome.
Jean Martin, 10 Cumming Street. Thank you very much. Mr. Marks did nail it. Actions do speak louder than words. I agree with this in sentiment. I agree with this in theory. I don't like the pretty words. I'm really against the pretty words. It's worded in a way that, makes me feel like if I say something wrong, I'm going to get slammed. And I understand that there's going to be listening sessions. I just don't want to I don't want it to be overstated, because I am going to say things that somebody else doesn't agree with. That's just a fact of life. And so I just want to put it out there that I agree with this in sentiment. Now, just so you know, I come from a place growing up in Medford that was not racially equitable. I grew up in a very racist city, I'm sorry, my experience. I grew up in the time period that there was a race riot in Medford High, and my cousins would come home, and they would be name-calling, and they actually physically had altercations, including my female cousins had female altercations with other females of other races. So I don't come from that place that everybody's born equal. And I do believe that we need to take steps, concrete steps, and that's where I agree with Mr. Marks, that we need to have STEM mentoring, specifically for black children, especially black boys. I'm sorry, I'm going to put it out there. It needs to be said that there is an injustice system in the city, in all of America, towards black children, especially black boys. And we need to specifically reach out to them. We need to hire them. We need to have a plan in our business districts to hire and operate black-owned businesses specifically, because there has been an injustice. So I'm all for that. I am all for admitting that there is racial inequality, and I want to take steps to do it. What I am afraid of with this recommendation is that if we get too flowery and we get too inclusive and we get too watered down, then we talk pretty and we never talk about the real issues. And that is the warning that I would like to put out with this, because I would like to see justice served. And there are some minority groups that deserve extra care. And currently, that is the religious Muslims. And I will put that out there because right now we are in a war with people who claim to be Muslim. And because of that, we have to be extra vigilant. There are translators who have come back to us in our country that were working with our military. And so in the military, there is not an issue that doesn't strike the military that isn't a microcosm of the greater society. There isn't, I talk to black women who are combat vets. I talk to pro-life. I talk to lesbians. I talk to every kind of person that you see in the major world. I talk to them. And we disagree. We always disagree, but we always have that common bond that keeps us together. So I just want to put that out there, that, I am that diversity. But at the same time, I don't want to have such an environment where you can't say this and you can't say that, because then it becomes unproductive speech. And it just is flowery, and it never addresses the root causes of things. So there isn't anything that in the greater society we don't deal with in the military, whether it's immigration, whether it's race, whether it's gender, whether it's sex, whatever it is, whatever the issue is. And so I just want to put that out there. But I also do believe that racial injustice is real. But don't put flowers around it. If you put flowers around it, you never deal with it. And politicians have to put flowers around it. I understand that. Real people don't, and I hope that they don't. Thank you.
Good evening, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Susan Gerard, and I'm a resident of 26 Farragut Ave. I've lived in Medford for 38 years, I guess. I agree with a number of things that have been said before. I think that I remember those race riots. I remember a time when there were racial comments being made. My daughter went to preschool in the West Medford Community Center, where I sent her because I wanted her to have a more diverse experience. And when she saw a little black friend of hers walking across the street, a white friend of hers jumped up and used the N-word, and my daughter, who's then 8 years old, punched her in the mouth. And I said to her, that's not the way we deal with these things, but I was proud of her at the same time. I do want to say, though, that I want to talk a little bit about the Medford conversations, because I think it's getting kind of mixed up with people's feelings about the mayor, which may be complex, and there's a lot of politics I can feel behind this. The Medford conversations is precisely doing what the previous speaker talked about, which is really getting down to it in a very down-to-earth way, what people really think, what they feel, talking to each other. And I think for me, actually coming and listening to the members of the police department talk about their terrible conditions was a part of the Medford conversations, because I had not heard that. I had not heard how bad the situation was for female police officers. I had not heard how terrible the conditions were in that police station. I'd been in it a couple of times, but never really knew what was going on there. This is what Medford Conversations is about, to sit down and listen to each other's experiences. This one happens to be focused on race, which is a tough thing to talk about. These are going to be people who are trained to talk about it in a mindful way. Nobody's going to put anybody down for saying something that's the wrong word or not politically correct. The idea is that we listen to each other. And I think what Reverend Evans said at the beginning, I totally agree about the need for affordable housing. My daughter and her partner cannot afford to live in Medford. They had to move to Wilmington because they have both fairly decent incomes, but they cannot afford to live here because it's just gotten prohibitive. So these are real issues, but we're not trying to take on the whole world. We are trying to talk to each other. We would like the support of our city government because it gives it more importance, I think, and especially if we can get some of the police to come and take part in this and get time off to do that, it would be particularly important at this time, I believe. So we need your support. Yes, we can have conversations without the support of the city council, but I think to have the support of the city saying, we believe in diversity, we accept the fact that you do, but to state it is important, and to put it into practice, Medford Conversations is an action. It's an action of people communicating with each other, which doesn't happen very well in our society right now. So let's all just listen to each other mindfully and respect each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, citizen.
Hi there.
Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Melanie Raylan, and I live on Stanley Avenue in Medford. Hi there. I'm a parent in Medford. I am the president of the Medford Community Coalition. I am a co-creator of the Mystic Makerspace and a general resident that is not going to just sit down and watch things happen. We're going to be proactive, and this is why we are here today. We are very glad to see the mayor's statement put forward. I do want to just address exactly what Susan just said. I think communication, which is one of the main parts of our mission statement at the Medford Community Coalition, is a real issue in Medford, and it's something we struggle with no matter what organization I'm volunteering for, even as a parent, what is going on. People are not connected, and I think a lot of it has to do with this day and age. everybody's on their phones but not talking to each other's faces. I think that's a very important part why we're all here in support of both this message of inclusion and the Medford Conversations Project, which we are all members of as well. I also want to reiterate Diane's sentiments before about the fact that it is important to hear this, not just as a statement to Councilor Caraviello's point, but on the media here, we need to see a press release from the mayor. It was lovely that she put forward this resolution, and we're very, very happy to see it and thankful, but we also need to have a press release that is a simple, direct way to show in the community that we are in support of inclusion and against hate. It's actually very complicated. In fact, before I came to tonight's city council meeting, someone who was very involved in the community, I did not understand this resolution. I was confused as to what was going on exactly, and I see now it's the politics of the mayor writing a resolution to city council and the city council approving, and that's lovely, but we need a press release. We need a simple press release that's saying, hey, by the way, and then we can share it on Facebook, and we can tell it to our friends, and we can stand behind it like we can stand behind Mayor Walsh's and Mayor Curtatoni's and in Cambridge and other neighboring communities. And we are just as strong here in Medford and just as diverse, and we deserve that. I also wanted to address Councilor Mark's points about the actions. And again, I do think it's important you listen to what Susan said and others, that Medford Conversations Project is in action. It's very important people talk to each other. It's very difficult for people to reach people. You have the elders who a lot of seniors only read the paper, and then you have the young people only look at Facebook. And then you have people of different cultures who maybe meet in the church, or they meet at the temple, or they meet, over at Alexander's while getting a sandwich at the deli. And yet, there's still how do we all talk to each other? How do I talk to somebody in a different culture, perhaps, outside of a big, large, lovely event bringing together everybody in the high school, And that's what the point of the conversations is, to have many different opportunities and events to reach people where they can be reached. Not to just host a large meeting that honestly appeals to the white privilege of a bunch of people sitting in a room who have time and have the kind of jobs that they can actually sacrifice that time. What about people who have 1 or 2 jobs? What about people who don't have that availability? We need to go to them. And so, yes, I do think it's important that City Council makes the statement. I think it's important the mayor makes the statement. I think it's important we see it from all the different organizations and not to look at that as an empty thing. I do agree, flowery language aside, the point is we need to be very clear and simple that no matter who you are in Medford, whether your race, your creed, your orientation, your religion, you are welcome, and your voice is as important as everyone else's. And that is why we had originally approached the mayor asking her to make this statement. I also just want to address in general, there's some confusion whether this is a political notion or not. And we believe at the Medford Community Coalition that hate does not have political parties. Discrimination is not a partisan issue. This is a human rights issue. So on the Medford Community Coalition page, you are going to see us in full support of any and all efforts to inclusion. And that just means that making people feel like they belong. And that's also what Medford Conversations Project is. It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is. If you live in Medford, you belong here. And so that's why we're here today. And finally, I just wanted to say we're going to work tirelessly to make sure every member of our community feels like their voice is heard. And we're constantly brainstorming for ways to reach people. So if anyone has any ideas, please do reach out to us at medfordcoalition@gmail.com, on our Facebook page, Medford Coalition. Come talk to me, whatever it is. But I do hope you guys realize the value and the importance that you put this on the agenda tonight. And I hope the mayor realizes just how important it was that she did put this resolution forward and then follows it up with a press release. And we will also publish information about Diane McLeod's office about what to do if you are in any situation that makes you uncomfortable as a resident of Medford or an employee or staff. And make sure people have access to that information, whether it be just a place to call and vent, or if it's legal matters, or whatever it is. We'll make sure that that's available to people. And I'd hope that the city of Medford would do the same and put it straightforward and clear on their website, including this message of inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Phyllis Morrison, 32 Andrew Street, and this is the particular reason that I attended tonight's meeting. I'm a little bit confused and concerned, but the reason I came tonight was based on the past 15 months in our country. I think that if you weren't paying attention, you miss the fact that there's a lot of division in the country, and it's playing out in the streets across the country. Medford, Somerville, Cambridge, wherever, whatever state it is. I am 66 years old, and for the first time in my life, I am fearful. Maybe not so much for myself, because I am a white woman. But I am fearful. I am fearful for acts that take place around. I'm fearful that words that are being said. I'm fearful from the rhetoric. And this is political in some ways. We are not here for political reasons. I believe my brother passed away on Sunday night, and I made sure I came here tonight because you know what he would have said to me? If you don't go, you're not doing what you're supposed to. This is almost like a mission statement for me. As citizens of the United States of America, of the city of Medford, and of the world, I believe it is our mission to make sure that everyone's rights are guaranteed and protected, and that when anyone feels unsafe by the actions of others, that we should step up. I find nothing, and I don't mean any disrespect, I thought you have great points. I don't find the statement flowery. I do think it could lead to that if we don't do what we say what we're going to do on the paper, and I'm sorry I'm back and forth here. I think it's critical that this council not only welcome this recommendation from the mayor, but they embrace it. I take your point, sir. I'm sorry I don't know your name. I can't see you. I have to stand up there because your name because I can't hear well. But you know, you said you grew up and you were taught everything. I grew up that way too, but not everyone was. And sir, I will say to you, or you, it was you that said the young people we need to reach. We need to reach the old people too, because they're afraid of the changes. They may not even not know what's going on. So we have to reach everybody. And I think that it's important that this city stand up and say, this is who we are. This is how we view our citizens and all citizens. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, citizen. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jay Campbell. I live at 707 Fulton Street in Medford, and thank you for bringing this up. I actually want to talk my perspective has been slightly different. I grew up here. I didn't really have any unhappy issues with different races, ethnic. One of my kids who grew up here, I can tell you that my child's in the 4th grade, my other one's in the 8th grade. The race type issue has never been an issue. What I do see in Medford, a bigger issue for me at least, is an economic issue with kids who have money and the kids who don't. And the things that we can do to incorporate that. And one thing I'd recommend to anybody, you know, if you really want to see what's going on in the schools too, go to Medford High School for the open house. And you see all the unbelievable items in after-school activities, and none of it, all the tables are staffed by every type of ethnic race, 68 in fact, evidently, and every type of sex, and it's really great. However, the scary thing to me is not so much the ethnic, which I believe having diversity is very important in making a big statement. I'm very thankful I live in a community that I believe just lives that every day. One of the things that Medford could do from an economic standpoint is some people have what's called a Section 8 voucher. What very few people realize that you can take that Section 8 voucher and use it to purchase a home. The government has a program where you can take that and actually use it to purchase a home. They'll pay for it just like if you were renting. Many of the communities around Medford offer that. However, Medford does not. In addition to being a resident, I also happen to be a real estate broker. I was trying to work with a family that's on a Section 8 voucher who happens to be disabled. And as a disabled Section 8 voucher, you can actually have it pay the entire mortgage. And some disabled ones. If we really want to be more inclusive, I think we need to think of the economic. I think we need to think about programs, very simple things that other communities are doing that we could do. And one of the things I'd encourage is having whoever might be in the housing look at the Section 8 program and incorporate that into Medford, as well as all the great things that everyone's doing with the Conversation Project and everything else. I just want to bring to the forefront the economic disparity with kids. And 2 of the councils here are basketball coaches at St. Francis. You see it with some of the kids who have toes that are basically sticking out of the shoes. And that's for any type of ethnic. I've seen kids, all nationalities, have that issue. So I'd also like if maybe some thought can go into how we can improve and do more fundraising for the residents. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Reverendissima, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Reverend Wendy Miller Olapade. I live at 105 Brooks Street in Medford. I'm the lead pastor of Sanctuary United Church of Christ, a member of Medford Conversations Project, a board member of Medford Health Matters. But I'm here tonight as a mom, as well as all of those things. I just want to say that it is a little bit confusing that the Conversations Project has gotten attached to these concerns about hate. And so I just want to affirm that I think the Medford Conversations Project, you know, the city's not doing it, the community is doing it. People came together with an idea and built a coalition supported, as you've heard, by many organizations. So whether you support this or not, we would still do that. I think really what I want to encourage is what Melanie did, which is that I, as a mother whose 16-year-old brown-skinned child less than 4 months ago called me at 9 o'clock in the morning when he was walking down Winthrop Street and said to me, I'm scared. And I said, why, Aaron? And he said, because I stepped behind a building so I could hear my girlfriend on the telephone, and I'm afraid I might get in trouble and somebody might shoot me. Now, I know that that kind of stuff is not happening here in Medford with our police department. On the other hand, this is a child who lives in an environment in our country where, because his skin is brown, he's afraid to walk in his community and step behind a building to hear a telephone call. The second little vignette I want to share with you is that on the morning after the election, he said to me, I said to him that I was sorry that things went the way that they went because of the amount of rhetoric and hate that was expressed in our election process. And he said to me, Mommy, it's not your fault that people hate me because I'm black. Now, this is a child with a white mother who has all the privilege in the world, who is a child of great hope and great joy. He's a wonderful young man and has all the resources that he could ask for, and yet there's a part of him that is afraid. So I share those stories with you to say that this is really, really important for all of our citizens, that as a community, everybody knows, not just those of us who have the privilege of being cisgendered and white and educated and economically well. It is class and race. You can't separate these things, but we must be the kind of place that puts a banner, a rainbow banner on our city hall. Next year, I hope it's 3 times the size, because I had 12 different people call me and say, what a gift to know that my city stands behind me. We need to be that kind of place where everybody knows that they're safe, where they know they have a place to go, where they know that there are people that are rooting for them and fighting for them. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Wendy. Chair recognizes Vice President Lungo-Kern.
I'll yield. I'm sorry. I thought she was the last speaker.
Good evening, citizen. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Robert Penta. I live at 0 Summit Road, Medford, Mass. I'm a member of this body. I find this resolution extremely interesting, and it's interesting to the point that are we going in a direction that I thought the city was already embarking itself on? When Mr. Noah, the Reverend from the Grace Episcopal, indicated that there's so much division, I really wish you would have expanded upon what you call division as compared to what other people might think of division, because I would assume that that's what your conversations are about, the issue of division. But let's not get into the fact that the city of Medford is being in a very divisive situation right now. And I do support inclusion, and I do support not hating. And I think everybody around this rail and everybody in this room supports that. But the part that I think is concerning to me right now is this is a very important issue. It's more important than the airplanes flying over our heads, for which the mayor showed up last week. I believe she should have been here tonight, because if this was this personal to her and she wanted this council to accept it, she should have been here to tell her story and to tell it to the mayor, to the people here in this, in the city of Medford. Because what I did is I dissected these 7 things and these whereases, and they all sound good, but when you get to the very first one, it says, the strength of our nation is derived from its history of diversity that has enriched our communities with the variety of cultures, faith, traditions, viewpoints. But the most important line has been left out. It was provided for us through our veterans who died for us to have all these privileges and all the cultures to come into this country and to expand our horizons, which do include and bring about everybody. The second line talks about the city of Medford is a community that welcomes and values the varied racial and ethnic makeup of our residents. We do that as it relates to all those who are legally abiding citizens here in the city of Medford, and in every single city that is inclusive and welcoming. And you get to the third line where it says, Medford stands in support of all immigrant groups and newcomers as they pursue the American dream. Now, when you say all immigrant groups, there's a group out there that are illegal. Are we saying that we're supporting illegal immigrants in here? Are we saying that we're not going to adhere to our national standard on its immigration acts as it relates to people who bypass the vetting process, who bypass the legal process, and we bring them in? Words are very distinctive, and they need to be clarified a lot better. Go to the fourth one where it says, the city of Medford will work to model our city as a safe and welcoming place that equally encourages all to seek personal advancement and to reside in a peaceful contentment in Medford. Well, isn't that the responsibility of you as parents, you as elected officials, of our school system, of our churches, in our legally abiding law department that makes sure and enforces the law to make number 4 work? And then we go to number 5. It says, the city of Medford rejects all words and acts of hate, indifference, and intolerance that undermine our neighborhoods, communities of faith, and our schools, and thwart the promise of equal justice. Well, that's very true, and I can appreciate the fact that the Conversations Project does take that in. And I believe as of January of this past year, 2016, if I understood you correctly, Reverend, you had these small groups. I don't know how many small groups got together, and we never seen a report as to what it's about. But if you take that into the everyday actions of the citizens, they're led by, once again, parents, teachers, and law enforcement people. We are a very inclusive community right now. If there are 65 type languages spoken or ethnic backgrounds in our Medford public school system, we're doing a good job, because right now I don't see anybody coming before this podium complaining to you that the city of Medford is not being accommodating, not being welcoming, not satisfying, not assisting any one of those people. Then when you go to number 6, it says, whereas our nation was founded on the fundamental principle that all persons are entitled to equal protection of the law, equal opportunity, and to the enjoyment of civic and human. That's provided for all law-abiding citizens. Words like that need to be clarified and need to be definitive. If you're going to be inclusive, you want to be inclusive for the people who deserve the respect, who deserve that right, not for those people who might either be illegal or questionable for the purposes of taking those rights away from people in the city that do deserve them. And then when you get to number 5, I want to just go back to that one there. When we talk about number 5, where it says the city of Medford rejects all words and acts of hate, indifference, and intolerance that undermine our neighborhoods, communities of faith, and our schools, and thwart the promise of equal justice. Well, it's been this city administration that since January of this year that does not have a public policy, a social public policy for any of its municipal and school department employees as we speak right now. And that should be a prominent task of this administration. In March of this past year, unfortunately, a Medford police officer reposted something that was sent to him. And as a result of his reposting of it, Medford Mayor took it to the news media and subsequently stated, we are working on a policy that will be coming out very shortly. There is no policy that addresses every single one of those issues that can be found in number 5. And that's important to note. I think it was you, Council Marks, that said if the administration, it's basically saying you have to put your mouth where your money is. You don't want this to be flowery words, you want this to have an impact. And again, I'll go back to the fact and saying, if it wasn't for the veterans of our country that started us on the land of having freedom, we wouldn't be able to get to any of these things that want to be done here today. Because it's just not right to turn around and say, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. How do you get to doing all these things? If the Conversations Project its intent is to bring more people together, youngsters, for whatever it might be, church people, fire department, police department, counselors, or anybody who wants to have a discussion for whatever it might be, that's great. It serves its purpose for whatever it needs to be done. But the conversations, as it relates to this ordinance being presented here right now, it basically falls short. It falls short because some of the things that you're talking about, the administration hasn't even taken and put into place. Some of the things are just inherently in place because of your responsibility as parents and as elected officials. If the mayor really wants this to be a trademark, a legacy of her administration, I really think I think you guys need to lay this on the table and sit down with her and correct some of the language in here and make it become more appropriate to the intent of what it needs to be. How can you want to work to be a model city? The model city is created by yourselves. It doesn't go to Winchester, Arlington, Cambridge, Boston, Northampton, Springfield. It's right here in our own city. You create your own model because of your honor system, because of your parental system, because your difference of knowing what honesty is and what it's all about. Probably 80 to 90% of this is okay, but I think it needs some rewording to make it become more effective, to make it be more declarative, and more importantly in the beginning, you wouldn't be able to have this if it wasn't representative of the veterans of this country. And let me just leave you with this one last thought. You know, it's kind of interesting to think about if we're going to go on to these moral crusades of having resolutions such as this, well, maybe the council should get into the crusade of making a public statement against Hampshire College and the president of that university, who took down the American flag because a group of brats that go to that school thought it was the way to go because they didn't like the election results. And then they burned our flag. And then what you saw this past weekend was over 200 to 300 veterans on the university of the school demanding that that flag go back. And the president of that school should be fired as the requests are going. That flag right up there represents your ability to be in this chamber right now and to do the things that the people in this audience are asking you to do. Whether you agree, disagree, cut it in half, add or subtract to it. If we're going to engage yourself in these type of things, then you might as well be prepared to go into every other civil action that's out there, every other moral action that's going to be out there. This is too important of an issue just to accept it tonight without reviewing and looking at some of these words to make it become more declarative and to make it become more inclusive here in the city of Medford. Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Eileen Lerner. I live at 9 Adams Circle. I'm a new resident of Medford. I've just been here a little over 2 years, and I'm very excited about Medford. I like the diversity in the community. I like just a lot of energy that's going on here. But I do want to speak for the necessity of the Medford Conversations Project. You know, one of my neighbors is selling her house that she's lived in for many years, and she told me that her neighbor said to her the other day, "Did you see who came to look at your house the other day?" And she said, "No, I didn't." And the neighbor said, "You know, well, I certainly hope you're not going to sell your house to them." And my neighbor said, "I'm selling my house to whoever has the money to pay me," okay? So that's just one incident. Then, you know, I was invited to a Christmas party by some really nice neighbors, and her father said to me, "What religion are you?" And I said, "Well, you know, I was raised Jewish, although I attended Unitarian church at present." And he said, "Oh, the money changer." Okay? So it's easy to say that Medford is non-discriminatory if you're a white person and you're part of the Christian, you know, majority in this country. But if you're an ethnicity that's a minority, you know that there is discrimination. I mean, probably for you, you don't even feel like this room is discriminatory, but I do. I feel like this room is discriminatory. I've never seen anything like this in a city council. Excuse me, I come from Cambridge. And we would never have all these Christmas trees in the city council because we believe, you know, church and state should be different and, you know, but I believe that I also have been an ESL teacher for 25 years to adults. Before that, I taught Head Start. All of my working life has been, you know, with diverse populations. And I think whether people are documented or not, I have met these people. They are so optimistic. They are so hardworking. We're just so lucky to have them come to our country and contribute to our country and contribute to taxes and take those low-paying jobs that Americans don't want. We owe them a debt of gratitude. And most of them would never even come here. They would stay in their own countries because everybody loves their home country and wants to stay there if conditions are good. This past year, I went to Honduras with Witness for Peace, okay? Now, women and children have been fleeing Honduras along with, first the men came, now the women are coming because they're getting killed down there, they're getting massacred, and the people who are doing it are not being punished. Yeah, they're coming without documents. Let us save them, let us welcome them, let us not send them back where they're going to be killed. Those are the people you're saying don't deserve our love, don't deserve our welcome. That is crazy and heartless and cruel. And I think, you know, I agree with you. We need to talk about the larger underlying issues that we need to address, but we have to start somewhere. I want to start with talking to my neighbors, not just the ones that live on my street, but the ones that live in areas where I don't have access. I mean, I think this project is so positive, and we're going to do it whether we have your support or whether we don't. But I hope you will support us and the mayor will support us and we can go forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lerner. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jean Martin, 10 Cumming Street. Just 3 quick points. First of all, as a lesbian, as a veteran, I am insulted and offended by the rainbow flag, I'm sorry, on the City Hall. The only flag that belongs on City Hall is that one. I'm sorry. I know that offends some people, but that is a huge issue. Those flags divide. I understand. I don't want to see an Irish flag. I don't want to see a Black Lives Matter flag. I don't want to see an American Legion flag on City Hall. City Hall has one flag associated with it, and it's that one, okay? Many people are covered with that flag coming back from Afghanistan. So that flag is an issue for me. So I just want to put that out there. The other thing is, I talk to black women veterans, combat veterans, and they are irritated that they cannot put a Bible on their workspace desk. So there are issues that cross class and cross gender, so and race. And so the fear that I have with the liberal mentality that needs to be said is that I want these conversations to happen because they are good. I have broken a marble head with my brother. I got him to finally understand that the black man has been left behind. It took me years to get him to that point, okay? It took me years to get him to that point, and that was through conversation, so conversations matter. But if we only have liberal people that are like-minded, and we don't include class and gender, especially male gender, white male Christian gender, in these conversations, then they're not going to be productive. Those are the things that I have to say. But I thank you very much for listening. Amen.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, guys. My name is Sam Sednick. My address is 47 West Wyoming Avenue. And I kind of just want to address the Medford conversations part of this bit. I know that several of you actually attended Envision Medford that the Medford Community Coalition put on last February, and that was a Medford Conversations piece. It was groups of citizens sitting together at tables, and we were talking about the economic development possibilities for the city. And out of that, we produced lots of documents of things that we can do and ways that we can improve. And if you want to talk action pieces, the Medford Community Coalition right now is working on putting together a community block party that we harvested that from those conversations, and we're working to make that an action. These conversations are amazing. They bring people, regardless of your political whatnots and hazards and genders and race and whatnot, they bring them all to one table and let you have a real functional conversation that you're not going to have on Medford Politics page or whatever else on Facebook, where you're face to face with someone and you have a great dialogue. It saddens me a little when I hear people say, well, they're just words, or it's just a piece of paper, because words have power and paper has power. Our Constitution is printed on a piece of paper, and they didn't stop just once. They printed it again and again and again so people could hear about it and people could learn from it. And I feel like the leadership in our community coming forward and saying, yeah, hate's a bad thing, is not too much to ask. And I would hope that if you haven't had an opportunity to come to one of the Medford Conversations, that you do, because they're truly amazing groups where you get a lot from this community. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Joe Villione, 59 Garfield, Medford, Mass. When we go to Somerville TV or Reading TV or Cambridge TV, there are conversations. We see a community meeting place, a cultural melting pot of talented people. Medford Conversations have been interrupted. Volunteering my time at the Great Debate, October 25th, dozens of people saw this videographer interrupted by someone hurling an assault, a verbal assault. It's just not fair that in Medford we have some people that just don't want to be civil if someone's doing their volunteer work. The community TV station is the Mecca, the place where residents can go and participate with other residents and have that conversation. Something called the Medford Community Coalition can meet at a public access station. We could have radio, we can have television. I have kept this alive over the past 12, 13 years. Think about that. And in 3 years, we have no conversation for people that might want to be on the city council. And I agree with Jean Martin and with Eileen Lerner when they talk about having that conversation. Everyone at this council, everyone behind us, can have that conversation. The only place to have a conversation today in Medford is at the Medford City Council. And it's difficult because if I go off just even 1/8 of an inch, the gavel slams, and that is not a conversation. That is an interruption of a conversation. So we have strict guidelines in Medford. Censorship policies are intact. We need to break those walls down. We can't have a media blackout, which elected officials enjoy, and the rest of the population are blind. It's like walking around with a cane because we pay for a system where we can have that conversation. And look what has happened to me over the years. Look at what has happened to one individual who tapes Felicity Jones, the woman in the new Star Wars movie. You can go to YouTube and see me talking to her. That is the conversation that Medford residents cannot have. There's going to be a lot of great things happening in 2017. I'm working very hard for it. We're going to have a public access station, but this city council, it's your obligation, and you are derelict in your duties if you don't keep bringing up the public access issue, because we pay for it. You people handle finances here. We don't have it, and that is where the conversation starts.
Mr. President, I don't think there's a need to over-politicize the paper any further. I'd motion to end all debate.
On the motion to end all debate, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All debate is ended. On the motion for approval by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. All debate has been canceled, Councilor Marks.
It's not a debate, it's a question.
Please.
Mr. President, whereas the mayor has offered this as a statement, wouldn't it be incumbent upon us as a council to create our own statement, Mr. President, and offer our own statement?
It just may be.
So
We have a paper for approval before us. If the council would like to create its own statement, I'd be most delighted to entertain it when it's placed before us on the agenda.
So I would respectfully ask my council colleague, Mr. Knight, to withdraw his motion to end all debate, so the council can have some discussion. We heard from residents, we heard about the petition, and now I think it's appropriate as a body that we have some discussion.
I think we've discussed the matter at length, Mr. President. I certainly support the matter wholeheartedly. If the gentleman feels as though there's a need to further discuss it, I'd be happy to withdraw my motion to end all further debate, and I'd ask that the President add me as a co-sponsor of the resolution so the paper is currently endorsed by a councilor, and I would move for approval as the language is currently authored.
On the motion of Councilor Knight to withdraw his motion and to add his name as co-sponsor to this paper, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
And I welcome any of my council colleagues to join me as co-sponsor.
Does the motion for approval stand?
Yes.
Is the second stand?
And I'd be happy to withdraw the motion for approval, Mr. President, if the gentleman wants to further elaborate on his position on the paper.
Councilor Falco?
I would like to, if I'd like to actually be added as a co-sponsor as well to the paper.
On the motion for approval and as co-sponsors, Councilors Knight and Falco.
And as I said, Mr.
Motion
President,
for approval by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Falco.
I'll be happy to withdraw my motion for approval to allow Councilor Marks an opportunity to address the council based on the...
Well, we don't have to withdraw the motion. On that motion, Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I have no problem with the intent of this. I believe, as was stated before, Medford Conversation Project has done great work in this community in trying to build bridges and unite people in this community. What I would ask is that, you know, the mayor offered us a paper, a resolution. I would ask that we receive the mayor's paper and we create our own resolution, Mr. President. I, as one member of this council, think we should get together and have our own dialogue and discussion and what we'd like to see as part of a statement.
Councilor, I offered you that opportunity at the beginning of this, and now it's been made our co-statement because it is co-sponsored by two of our esteemed colleagues.
That's terrific. That's great, and I'm glad after the fact that people want to put their names on this. What I'm saying is, Mr. President, I, as one member of the council, would ask my fellow colleagues, and I don't see why we can't sit down and discuss the issues that we would like to see represented in a statement. I'm sure the school committee would like to do the same, and the mayor eventually, as was requested here tonight, will make her own statement. So how would it look, the mayor make a statement that's exactly the same statement that we put out? Maybe some people will like that, maybe some people won't. I would like to see a statement come from this council. And I bring my own unique perspective. Many people have brought in experiences here that they've felt and so forth. And I have my own experiences, Mr. President, and my own unique perspective on issues. And I think it's only appropriate that we get together, it may take us a little time, and we come out with a statement from the Medford City Council. And not just be paper pushers, receive a statement, and everyone's in favor of that statement. So I would respectfully ask my colleagues to consider that, Mr. President, and move that forward as a recommendation tonight from this council.
Thank you. On that recommendation, we have a motion for approval by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Falco. Chair recognizes the Vice President, Brianna Longo-Kern.
Thank you, President Del Russo. I think it's important to accept this paper. It's the mayor's words, and we go on record as supporting her words. And I think it's important to the community, but I agree with Councilor Marks. I think we should, if we want to do that on top of accepting this paper, I'm amenable to that, to come up with our own verbiage at another time. But I think the more times we can show that we're in support of inclusion and people being treated equal, the better. And I think it's important to we have 25 groups within this project who are almost the ones giving this city hope and giving all people of this city hope. And I think it's important to show our support. That's hundreds of people that are going to work together, have been working together for the betterment of this community. So I think even if we do both, I agree. And I know that somebody went to the podium saying they want the mayor to do her own press release. I think that's very important too, and I too wish she was here tonight. And maybe that's our next step, approve the mayor's resolution, ask her to do a press release, and also come up with our own language at a later date, even if it's at the beginning of the new year, to show not only do we accept the mayor's resolution, but we created our own language so that we can show the public that we are in full support of inclusion and equality.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. On the motion for approval by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Falco, the chair calls for a roll call. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. We've had enough debate on this, Councilor. You've spoken on the matter at least 3 times, as I can remember. Councilor Marks wishes to amend the paper.
No, I offered an amendment that should supersede the main motion, Mr. President.
What is your amendment?
That the council create our own statement, Mr. President.
That wasn't offered as an amendment. The word you
yes,
used was
yes, it was.
suggestion or recommendation. I never heard the word amendment uttered.
Well, it was offered as an amendment, Mr. President, and I would suggest that we take both votes, because I have no problem supporting what's before us, Mr. President. We heard tonight from a gentleman that came before us that was very disappointed, Mr. President, in the fact that this council never stands up on its own. And here we go again. We're presented a paper that's a statement. I mean, anyway, we have 50 people in the room, and we could have 50 different statements. Let's make a statement from the Medford City Council. That's all I'm saying. Let's make a statement from the Medford City Council.
That the City Council come up with a statement on this matter. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. To the main motion offered by Councilor Knight, the mayor, and Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Caviola. Yes. Councilor Falco.
Yes.
Councilor Knight.
Yes.
Vice President Leonard Curran.
Yes.
Councilor Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Del Russo.
Yes, with the vote of 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative, the matter passes. Thank you all. Where's Gaza? 776. What's that? Let Rindazzo go home. While we're into suspension, 16776. To the Honorable President and members of the Medford City Council, City Hall, Medford, Mass. 02155. Dear Mr. President and City Councilors, I respectfully request and recommend that your honorable body approve the appropriation of certified free cash in the amount of $10,000 for the purpose of testing a lighting upgrade in Medford Square to determine if we want to do a full retrofit project estimated to cost approximately $100,000. As you are aware, the lighting in Medford Square is not adequate. The city has had a vendor install 3 simple fixtures. However, it is not conclusive if the retrofit would be beneficial to the light levels for the entire square. The balance in certified free cash prior to the vote is $9,719,329. The Director of Energy and Environment, Alicia Hunt, as well as Steve Randazzo, Superintendent of Wires, will be present to answer any questions. Chair welcomes and recognizes our dear colleagues from City Hall. Folks, we could have some order. Thank you.
Good evening. I think that it's pretty clear in that what it is, and I thank Councilor Marks for reading the memo last week that we had sent to the mayor and therefore to the City Council about what we were doing with LED lighting in the city. One of the projects that we mentioned in that memo that you read last week was to upgrade the lighting in Medford Square, and I believe that that memo mentioned that we had some samples, it did, in the square. We have been talking at it at length, and we would like to do a sample block of lights before asking for a full $100,000 to do that upgrade. So that's what's before you today, so that we can show that, in fact, this is the right upgrade to do for the square lights. We think that the square lights are critical, that it's critical that it looks good in the square, and we're not clear that we can tell that from just having one fixture. I don't know if Steve wants to add anything about the project.
As we know, everyone, has been a big topic of discussion, the lack of lighting in the square. I do believe the last sample that was provided to us, that's in front of Medford Electronics, would be sufficient. They do offer one that's a little bit brighter. You probably, I would suggest to maybe take a look and form your own opinion, and maybe give us any input would be greatly appreciated. Obviously, the more light, the better, but we also don't want to have a glaring effect on people that are commuting through the city. So I think it's something that's well needed, and the lighting that we have now is definitely outdated. It's obsolete. We can't even repair it with a compatible model today. So that is something that we need to look at for the future anyway. Now that they're starting to not function properly, it's not going to get any better without a direct replacement.
Very good. Well, we've had intense and detailed discussion about this matter over the years. Chair recognizes Councilor Scarpelli.
I recommend the we approve.
On the motion for approval by Councilor Scarpelli, Councilor Caviello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wholly recommend this also. Steve, I saw the couple of samples you had there. Is it, like, I think the one you had in front of Medford Electronics, is that the brighter of the ones?
That is the most functional out of the lighting samples we have had installed. The two that are across the street are more of a style lighting that directs outward and upward, where less of the light is functional on the ground, where we would prefer it. It does offer a lot more lumens, and it is pretty much going to be the one that we would install, except for the newer model is supposedly going to be a little bit brighter than what that one is.
Right. And we also, there was some concern that it might be a little too blue of a light, so we've been discussing whether we should have a color that is in between the old light, which is a very orange light, the sample that's there that's a very blue light. There's actually an option to take it a little bit in between the two, which we think is actually the right way. Because we sound hesitant, and that's actually why we're asking for just part of the money, so that to do just one block, and then we could come back and say that works or that doesn't work, and then do the rest of the square.
The reason I ask is I've seen other squares, and their lights even seem a little brighter than what we're proposing now. I mean, is there like a next step up to get them a little?
Unfortunately, with the fixture style that we have in place now, which is the whole actual lantern head, there aren't many options.
Do we have to replace the whole lantern head?
So
the whole lantern head would have to be replaced in order to do better than the last sample.
Right. So I actually asked about whether or not it would make sense to just replace the whole fixture so the whole thing would look different. And what came back to me is that it would be a dramatically more expensive project. And as this is, we feel that $100,000 to redo the lighting is quite expensive. It would be several times that in order to do whole new heads. It would be a much more cumbersome project. It would be much more disruptive in the square as well. So it's not clear that that would be the right way to go in the city.
Like I say, I for one would like to see the maximum wattage that we can get. Like I say, because I've been to many of the squares, and there are a lot more. And I saw the samples you put out, and I thank you for putting those on so we can get a look at it. But if we can get them, I like to see them, as bright as you can possibly get them, to really, give the square a little bit, as much as we can do. There's no National Grid doesn't kick in on this.
So the reason National Grid won't kick in on this is because these lights have actually already been upgraded to LED. So what we have in the square is efficient lighting. It doesn't use a lot of wattage. And so the proposal that we actually have reduces the wattage by the tiniest amount that you could possibly do and still be considered a reduction in wattage. So National Grid won't give us money. They give us money for reducing the amount of electricity we're using. We have explored options for the last 2 years to see if there was any way that we could increase the light and reduce the energy usage, because then National Grid would kick in, and we cannot can't do it. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Caviello. Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I think that the way that this lighting issue in the square is being approached is smart. It might have taken a little while, but it's smart. We've taken a look at 3 different samples. We've seen which one may work best for Medford. We've picked one of those samples. Now we're saying let's pilot the sample that we've selected so that, you know, there's a small impact on cost. We want to make sure that we're getting bang for our buck. I think that this is really a smart approach, Mr. President, to financing this project and ensuring that the final product actually meets the objective goal. So with that being said, I would second Councilor Scarpelli's motion for approval. And I
The
support
motion for
paper.
approval by Councilor Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Knight. Chair recognizes Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Alicia and Stephen, for your hard work on this. And it's good to see that this is taking place. I mean, the square is very dark. That's one of the biggest complaints that I get, is that it's dark. And you want it to be inviting, of course, because you want people to come into your downtown and go to dinner, and you want them to feel safe and whatnot. With regard to the project, so what's the, you know, my colleague mentioned pilot program, but like so what's the timing on this? I guess for the, you know, as far as, yeah, if you could elaborate more on that.
So I haven't asked the contractor for his availability yet, but I would think that if we got the money, we have a solid proposal, we could issue him a contract for the first $10,000 worth of work.
Okay.
We have a proposal for the full project. I would hope that we could do it sometime in the next 6 weeks. That would be much more dependent on just the availability and the scheduling. There may be some getting the actual products. Contractors tend to not purchase the product until they have a contract in hand. So it may take a little longer depending if there's any lead time on these items.
And you mentioned that it's going to impact one block. Is that what? So as far as for people watching at home, I mean, what block will it impact? So
I don't think we've designated
Oh, you
a
haven't,
certain
okay.
particular block yet. We're willing to take any recommendations. If you'd like to see one area, we don't want it to stand out, so we're trying to maybe come up with an area that's not gonna blend in with the other one, because it's gonna stand out substantially from what the existing lights are. So you probably wanna put them in a section where people aren't gonna say, why they have all different kinds of colored
Right.
lights.
And I was kind of thinking the Salem Street block to just sort of take that and do it. High Street's too long, and you wouldn't want it to be a bunch and then to change. It would look awkward for the couple of months. I think it would probably, if we did it, we liked it, it would then take us another couple of weeks to get the rest of the product ordered and get the installations done. I didn't want to do it back, like behind on Clippership, because we wanted to see how it would look in front of our stores. And that if we were to do it like in front of City Hall or on Clippership Ave or someplace that was completely out of the way, we wouldn't understand really how it would look in the whole scale. I would add that, as you're aware, we are looking at a larger project of upgrading, purchasing, upgrading lights, et cetera, throughout the city. I don't want to truly confuse this very specific project with that other, but in my mind, there is an opportunity when we do the broader citywide project to say, you know, what if we brought in one Cobra headlight here and one over there? It's very expensive to install poles, to run that conduit. That kind of thing is a very expensive project, and to do that as a one-off thing would be extremely difficult, but perhaps there'd be a way that we could do some stuff. There's a parking lot there, sort of tucked in next to the National Grid power, power substation there, that is very dark. We've been asked for lighting in it. I'm very hopeful that if we do this broader project, we could bring in a pole there or two, that there might be a few other very strategic, discrete places that we could add a light in that larger project. I think that the cost of that would be astronomical compared to this, but for that project, which is actually going to have a very good payback, there's some room to do some interesting things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Falco. Chair recognizes Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Steve, can you just address, I know we did the sample fixtures, and I personally like the one near Medford Electronics. I thought it shed a lot of light, and the light wasn't a real bright light. I'm not sure I understand why, because it says the retrofit may not be beneficial to light levels in other parts of the square or the entire square. How, you know, giving everything being the same, you know, in front of businesses, Salem Street or High Street, or Riverside Ave, how would it be any different if we were to say, let's go forward with the project?
Some of the areas have a two-headed pole, some of them have a one-headed pole, some of them are a little more concentrated. So those are the areas you might see a larger difference. But I think overall you would definitely see a difference, a substantial difference.
So what's the likelihood we spend $10,000 and then look at it and say, oh boy, this is awful, this doesn't provide the lighting that we like?
Well, I hope that's not the case. I do think that the light that's been offered to us is going to be pretty much the only option we would have with the existing fixture that we have in place, the existing lantern, which they're very expensive. For us to replace those to something that could accommodate more lighting would be a substantial difference in cost.
Now, are the poles the same distance from each other?
Not in all of the areas. Some of them are a little closer than others, depending on where you are in the square.
So would we benefit from double fixtures on the poles? I mean, to have a consistent, look and lighting projection,
It would definitely, two light heads would be more than one. You definitely have a lot more lumens output. But the problem would be is at that point you would have to replace the whole pole as well. Those heads come off the pole, but the poles are equipped with either an arm for one head or an arm for two heads. So any of the single head poles we would have to replace. The last one I replaced for inventory in case we had one knocked down was roughly $4,500 a pole without the actual lantern on it. Right. So you're talking a substantial difference. I think if we were just able to redo the lighting that we have, retrofit it with a better option, I think that would be sufficient without spending too much.
right. So as I read this, this is really not a test. I mean, we already went through the testing phase, right? I mean, it's, because I just don't want people to believe that we're spending $10,000, which is 10% of the full amount, to test to see whether we like this or not. I would hope that's not the case.
I would like to see the whole project done personally.
Right, so why aren't we asking for the full amount now?
But I think it's such a large scale of a project where you wouldn't want to sink $100,000 into something if not everyone's on the same page with, the results.
Okay.
I am concerned that if we came and asked for the whole $100,000 and we did the whole thing and the residents and businesses didn't like it, then they would just have to live with it. I mean, I don't know what the other option would be, whereas if we do one block, if we do 10 out of the 150 fixtures, or maybe 12 out of the 150 fixtures, and people don't like it, it's only $10,000. That's crazy, because to me, like $100 is a lot of money, but it's something where you could recover from, and you could just say, look, let's consider replacing the whole heads. Let's say that it's worth the $400,000 or $500,000 project. Right? If you do 10,000 and you say, forget it, that's horrible, and then we say the only answer is a $500,000 project, then the businesses and this council and the mayor may agree that it's worth a $500,000 project. If we did the whole thing and people hated it, then I can't imagine that it would be approved to do a whole different project. That's the rationale.
I think as was stated, anything would be an improvement, so.
Yes.
So I can't see anyone saying they'd hate additional lighting in the square. But hey, I'll support this. I'd rather vote for the whole package, but if this is how you want to go approach it.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Yes, Mr. President, if I could amend the paper, Mr. President, with a B paper, and ask that the mayor provide us with a feasibility and cost benefit as to whether or not doing the work in-house versus with a contractor would be beneficial to the community and the cost of the project.
Very good. So on the motion approved by Councilor Knight, by Councilor Scarpelli, seconded by Councilor Knight, with the B paper. On the B paper, for the cost analysis of whether it's better to do it by contractor or by in-house.
Would it be feasible to try to perform the work in-house?
Feasibility. All those in favor?
All right.
All those opposed?
Mr. President?
Motion.
Just if we could, while we have Steve here, Are we still gonna continue to rope electrical wire from light to light in the square?
That is typically only done for the holiday season. Anything that's still in place should have been removed. Anything that I've seen or am aware of has been removed. If there's something I'm unaware of, definitely point it out to me so I can make sure it is removed.
I think over by Ed Markey's old office in the corner, I think there was some concern there. And also, just so you know, there's an open electrical outlet right here in front of City Hall to the left. You'll see it in the ground. I don't know if it was an old street light or something, but there's wires coming out of it. It's been there for a while.
On the sidewalk?
On the sidewalk in front of City Hall out here to the
Okay.
left.
That, I believe, is one of the old fireboxes that has been obsolete.
There's still wires coming out. I don't know if they're,
The wires are de-energized. There's no
They're
safety
okay.
concern with the wires.
Okay.
It's a matter of the DPW patching the hole and removing the base that's.
okay, thank you.
On the motion for approval on the main motion, all those in favor, Council Caviello.
I hate to digress on this, but while the supervisor's here, I have a question for him. Steve, now that we're into the winter season, and I've been getting calls from the people that are going to LeConte Rink about the parking lot being dark in that area there. Is that parking lot our responsibility, or is it the DCI's responsibility, or?
I actually, so in my part of the work of looking at procuring all of our streetlights in order to upgrade them, I have been consulting with outside consultants. I actually asked National Grid that 2 years ago by sending them poll numbers, and nobody responded to me. The consultants who have been working on these sorts of projects have said to me, if it looks like that with the Cobra Head and it has the plaque on it, then it's a National Grid light. So we believe that that would be part of what we would procure in the larger project we want to do, but it's neither DCR nor us. We believe that it's National
Okay, yeah, like I
Grid.
say, I've been getting calls from the parents about the darkness of that parking lot, especially over by the rink this time of the year. If we could, see if we can get that lit up somewhere, especially the crosswalk where the kids cross to go into the building is essential. That that street where everybody seems to congregate down. I appreciate that.
On the motion for approval by Council Scarpelli, seconded by Council Knight, the main motion. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Caviello.
Yes.
Council Falco. Council Knight.
Yes.
Vice President Longo Kern.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Del Russo.
No. With the vote of 5 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and 1 absent. The money is granted.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
While we're under suspension, 16-778, offered by Vice President Longo Kern. Be it resolved that the Medford City Council requests that the administration work with the MBTA to make the bus routes more reliable on a more frequent schedule. Medford especially the 134, which only runs every 30 to 40 minutes during peak times. Current service for the current population is and has been inadequate, never mind when the current 800 more units are finished being developed, plus any other potential projects that are either being held up in the courts or are awaiting approval. Who wrote that? Chair recognizes Vice President Longo Kern. Did we just not have this last week?
No, we didn't.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, President Del Russo. The 134, the complaints that I'm receiving are from the Wegmans area. There's residents who live in the towers and use the 134. So no, we haven't discussed the 134, I don't believe. And to have a bus route that is coming 30 to 40 minutes, which some of the residents are complaining that it's unreliable as it is. We have projects over in that area that obviously are going to add to, they're coming online within the next, 6 to 9 months, and only going to add to the need for a more frequent, more reliable transportation service of the 134 especially. But if we could have have our administration discuss this with the MBTA and see what we can do to add every 20 minutes, I think is more sufficient, especially during peak hours. It's important, especially since a lot of the new developments that are coming on, and I know there's, obviously there's some that are being held up in the courts, but we're always told that these are millennials and they don't have cars and they're going to use the busing and the transportation through the T and the MBTA, I think it's important that we actually have that busing available so that, yes, we have enough transportation for our residents. That's really the gist of it. I did have residents in the audience that wanted to speak on it, but we're into the late hour, I think 9:30 already. So hopefully they will come to another meeting to discuss this more in depth, but I think it's important to start the conversation now before we have the 900 units that are coming on board, a number of those in this area, and then the other 500 potential units that are coming at the Shaw's site.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Move approval, Mr. President.
On the motion for approval, seconded by Vice President Long-Kern. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Motion to suspend the rules, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, Council?
Motion to suspend the rules?
Motion to suspend the rules. I think we're still under suspension.
No. Motion to rescind vote 16776, Mr. President. Councilor Falco was outside the chambers, I believe, using the restroom, and was unable to vote on the roll call vote, so I'd like to rescind the vote and allow Councilor Falco the opportunity to participate in the roll call.
On the motion to rescind the vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Mark me as opposed. The ayes have it for approval.
Move approval, Mr. President.
Motion for approval by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Caviello.
This is reconsideration on the vote for the appropriation from
For the
free
$10,000
cash
appropriation.
for the light bulbs.
Council Falco. Yes. Council Knight.
Yes.
Vice President Long-Kern.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Del Russo.
No, with the vote of 6 in the affirmative and 1 in the negative. The motion carries. The cash has been dispersed. Congratulations. Welcome back. While we're on to suspension, why don't we take paper 16-771, offered by Councilor Knight, because it's the only paper we have left. Whereas wage theft is defined as the improper withholding of payment to employees and the failure to pay employees according to required schedule, and whereas instances of wage theft most often involves employers paying their employees less than the minimum contracted or prevailing wage, not paying for all hours worked, and not paying overtime for hours exceeding $40 per week, and whereas the fiscal year 2016, the Attorney General's office received over 6,000 complaints issued after 400 citations and secured over $3.75 million in restitution and penalties related to wage theft, and whereas, no, be it so ordered that the Medford City Council adopt the following language. An ordinance relative to wage theft prevention. A, the following certification must be incorporated by the City of Medford and adopted as a required standard in regard to all bills and proposals for the provision and deliverance of services within the city, and shall apply to every new contract and every renewal term of a contract entered in after the date of passage. The contractor certifies that neither it nor any of its subcontractors have been subjected to federal or state criminal or civil judgment, administrative citation, final administrative determination, order, or debarment resulting from a violation of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 149, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 151, the Fair Labor Standards Act, or any other state or federal laws regulating the payment of wages within 3 years prior to the date of contract, or certifies that it has provided copies of any and all of the above to the city prior to the date of the contract, and any required wage, bond, or insurance, and certifies that while the contract is in effect, it will report any instance of the above to the city within 5 days of the contractor's receipt. B, the following provisions shall be included in and request for proposals, invitation for bids, or request for qualifications issued by the city on or after July 1st, 2017 AD. Prospective vendors must provide the following certifications or disclosures in writing to the purchasing agent with their bids or proposals. Failure to provide the following shall result in rejection of the bid or proposal. 1. Prospective vendors must certify that they Neither they nor any of their subcontractors have been subject to a federal or state criminal or civil judgment, administrative citation, final administrative determination, order, or debarment resulting from the violation of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 149, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 151, the Fair Labor Standards Act, or any other state or federal laws regulating the payment of wages within 3 years prior to the date vendors submit their bids or proposals. Or 2, prospective vendors must disclose any such criminal or civil judgments, administrative citation, final administrative determination, order or debarment, and include copies with their bids or proposals. 3, prospective vendors are notified that they must report any such criminal or civil judgment, administrative citation, final administrative determination, order or debarment from a violation of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 149, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 151, the Fair Labor Standards Act, or any other state or federal laws regulating the payment of wages while any of their bids or proposals to the purchasing agent official is pending, and if awarded a contract during the term of the resulting contract within 5 days of vendor's receipt. 4, prospective vendors that are subject to a state or federal debarment for violation of the above laws, either voluntary or involuntarily, or that have been prohibited from contracting with the Commonwealth or any of its agencies or subdivisions, will be deemed not responsible, and their bids or proposals shall be rejected. Such vendors shall be deemed not responsible for the entire term of debarment or other stated time period. During the term of contract, upon a final or a finding or order of such debarment or prohibition, the city may terminate the contract. 5, vendors awarded a contract that have disclosed a federal, state, criminal, or civil judgment, administrative citation, final administrative determination, order or debarment resulting from a violation of Massachusetts law, Chapter 149, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 151, the Fair Labor Standards Act, or any state or federal laws regulating the payment of wages within 3 years prior to the date they submitted their bids or proposals, or vendors awarded a contract that receive a federal or state criminal or civil judgment, administrative citation, order, or final administrative determination resulting from a violation of the aforementioned 2 chapters of Massachusetts General Law, Fair Labor Standards Act, or any other state or federal laws resulting in the payment of wages during the term of the contract and that are not otherwise prohibited from public contracting, may be required by the city to obtain a wage bond or other form of suitable insurance in an amount equal to the aggregate of 1 year's gross wages for all employees based on an average of its total labor cost for the past 2 years. Such bond must be maintained for the terms or extensions of any contract, and proof of such bond must be provided upon request by the city. 6, vendors awarded a contract that have disclosed a federal or state criminal or civil judgment, administrative action, final administrative determination, order or debarment resulting from a violation of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 149, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 151, the Fair Labor Standards Act, or any other state or federal laws regulating the payment of wages within 3 years prior to the date they submit their bids or proposals, and through the contract term shall furnish their monthly certified payrolls to the purchasing agent for all employees working on such a contract. Period. Chair recognizes Councilman Knight.
Mr.
Did
President,
I do all right?
I think your microphone was off. Can you repeat that, Mr. President? Mr. President, thank you very much. As evident by the length and verbiage of this resolution, this isn't something that was created overnight, and I'd be remiss if I did not recognize Mayor Burke for her efforts in helping put this resolution and requested ordinance change together, Mr. President. Mayor Burke and I were working on this for an extended period of time, and it came a situation where we said, what would be best for the city of Medford, and how, in the implementation of this, could it be done by executive order, or should it be done by the implementation of an ordinance? And after some discussion and deliberation, came back that an ordinance change would probably be the best approach because it creates some permanency. Mr. President. So ultimately, this is a piece of paper that we had worked on for quite a bit of time, several weeks, and the language that's before us here is the mutually agreeable language that we were able to come up with. Included in our packets this evening, you'll see a letter from Mayor Burke dated November 29th, 2016, reading, "Dear President Della Russo and members of the Medford City Council, the contribution that each individual makes when he or she offers their particular skills and talents in the marketplace benefit the economic state of our nation, our Commonwealth, and most importantly, to the well-being of their families. It is among the many responsibilities of government at every level to act to ensure that wages are paid to those who labor. Government fails in this responsibility when it does not make every possible effort to ensure that wages earned are wages paid. In recognition of this responsibility, I support the ordinance proposed by Councilor Knight in Resolution 16771 and respectfully recommend you act favorably upon this resolution." Mr. President, what this resolution does is it ensures that contractors awarded public bids with taxpayer money comply with the wage and hour laws that have been established at the federal and state level. As evident by the data that was mentioned in the ordinance change, the proposed ordinance change, Mr. President, wage theft is something that's becoming more and more common. And when we look at wage theft is when a public contractor is awarded a bid and they're required by law to pay their employees the prevailing wage rate. And instead of doing that, they say, we're going to continue to pay you $10 an hour, we're going to pocket the rest of the money, and that's going to go towards our profits at the end of the day. That money should be delivered directly to the employee by law. So what this does is it holds our contractors accountable. If we look through the budget for this year, we'll see that in our Public Works Department alone, we have $607,000 in public funds that are being sent out for contracted use, for subcontractors, Mr. President. And I think that this measure in this ordinance will really ensure that the individuals that are being paid with taxpayer dollars, public dollars, are complying with the laws at the state and federal level, Mr. President. So ultimately, when you look at this ordinance change, it requires the contractor to certify that they've not been found in violation of wage and hour laws at the state and federal level, and if they have, they'll report these instances to the city. If they've been found in violation within the previous 3 years, there are a series of steps that they need to take in order to inform the city as to what's going on. And it adopts standards and establishes standards required to bid on public projects related to reporting and then future insurance, Mr. President. So I'd move for approval on the matter. I understand that it's a very lengthy matter, and I understand that some of my colleagues in the council may want to digest this a little bit further, and that's okay with me. However, it's something that's been worked on for quite a bit of time. It's something that I support wholeheartedly, and I think it's something that's really going to make a difference in the lives of working people and working families, Mr. President. That's why I bring it forward. Again, Mayor Burke, I wanted to publicly thank her for help and support on this issue. Without her, we never would have been able to put such a thorough and comprehensive request for ordinance change together. So I thank her for taking a leadership role in this, but for also allowing the council to approach this as an ordinance change as opposed to an executive order.
Is there an existing, Councilor, if my dear colleagues would excuse me for asking from the chair, is there an existing ordinance to this effect?
Presently, the only community in the state of Massachusetts that has an order is the city of Chelsea, Mr. President. Other communities in the region, the city of Boston, the city of Cambridge, for example, have adopted a wage theft proposal by way of executive order, where Chelsea's adopted a wage theft ordinance at the legislative level. And again, after discussion with the mayor, an executive order can be rescinded at any time, can be pulled when the executive changes, and this is something that we both really believe in, and we feel as though it's important to the residents in the city of Medford to be sure that their tax dollars are being spent and going where they're supposed to go, Mr. President. That's why we bring it forward as an ordinance change, because in order to unchange it, we'll need to go through the legislative process, and it'll need to go through deliberation and the whole public process. So that was why it was brought forward as an ordinance change. Again, Mayor Burke really carried a lot of water on this, and I can't thank her enough for her efforts. And I truly believe in it. I think it's a good measure, and it's going to be very, very beneficial to the city of Medford in ensuring that those contractors that are paid with public dollars are held accountable and are and their employees are safeguarded to ensure that they're being compensated at the appropriate rate as established by state and federal law, Mr. President.
Thank you. And as the councilors all know, that an ordinance creation or change requires three steps: primary vote by the council, then a public posting, and then a final or third reading of the ordinance before it's ordained. Chair recognizes Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank you for reading that resolution, and I thank Councilor Knight for offering it. I support wage fairness. I support any type of wage theft that is done by any type of business that's not acting appropriately and fairly with their employees. I do believe that, as well as what was mentioned by Councilor Knight, this also boils down to the local level as well as boards and commissions. And I may be mistaken, and maybe the councilor could correct me, but I also think it boils down to licenses and permits that are issued by boards and commissions, and even by this council. And if someone that applied for a license or a permit that was found to be in violation, or a subcontractor of that person. So if you had a restaurant that came before us and they hire a company that does the cleaning of the stove vents, and that cleaning company, which is a subcontractor, is in violation of a fair wage or wage theft practice, that the license, common victuals license, could be revoked from the restaurant owner. So I think there's a lot involved in this. As Councilor Knight said, he spent a lot of time with the mayor putting this together, and I think it's only appropriate that we send it to the appropriate committee to vet it out, to make sure this works in our city for everyone, including businesses, and to make sure that we have the capability of obtaining information and being able to act. The one thing I disagree with is that executive order is actually a unique way of putting forward issues of concern. And it's a lot flexible than creating a city ordinance. So in my opinion, you have the flexibility of an executive order. The mayor at any time can create an executive order with the flick of a wrist, and that goes into effect immediately. And the option to do a city ordinance is fine, but I also think there's some downfalls with the city ordinance and much more flexibility with an executive order. So I would ask that it be sent, whatever my colleagues feel appropriate, for a subcommittee to have this properly vetted out. And many of the answers that I raised, I don't know if the council can answer that, but I have several other ones that maybe the city solicitor may need to answer. But I think it's a good idea. Next week I have something very similar to this about retail and wholesale shops that are doing business in our community, and pricing and everything else, which is on the same line. It's a little different, but it's on the same line, and it's about consumer and fairness and so forth. And this, I think, has a lot of merit, but I think it needs proper vetting.
Thank you. So on the motion of Councilor Marks that this paper be sent to zoning and ordinances, chair subcommittee, chaired by Councilor Knight. Chair recognizes Councilor, and seconded by Councilor Caviello. Chair recognizes, on that motion, Chair recognizes Councilor Knight.
Yes, Mr. President, in looking at the language, the following certification shall be incorporated by the City of Medford and adopted as a required standard in regards to all bids and proposals for the provision and delivery of services within the city, and shall apply to every new contract and every renewal term. It's strictly, Mr. President, focusing on matters that are coming out of the purchasing department, matters that are going to be sent forward for a request for proposal, request for qualification, so on and so forth, but matters that are actually subject to the public bid process. So it wouldn't extend to boards and commissions or the members in service thereof.
I'd like a legal opinion on that, because that's not the way I read it.
And we're gonna, on your motion, seconded by Councilor Caviello, depending on the vote before us, it will go to the subcommittee on zoning and ordinances. So on that motion.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote has been requested. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Caviello?
Yes.
Councilor Falco? Yes. Councilor Knight?
No.
Vice President O'Curr? Councilor Marks?
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli?
Yes.
President Del Russo?
Yes. 5 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, 1 absent. The paper goes to subcommittee.
Mr. President, motion to revert back to the regular order of business.
Thrilling. On that motion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Regular order of business. We did everything.
That was the regular order of
That was the regular order of business. The records of the meeting of November 22nd will pass to Vice President Uncle Kern. In her absence.
Motion to table, Mr. President.
Motion to table the records. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And on the motion of Councilor Scarpelli to adjourn, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Next week, we're going to have a committee of the whole, 5:30. We're going to take up the tax thing with Ed O'Neill, establishing the tax rate, and then the public hearing is already scheduled for the 13th, I think it is.